Words can be sharp, but since ancient times, the ruler should be a model for his ministers, and the nation should be a model for the people. You, for the sake of a mere secret formula, disregard the hierarchy and attack the emperor, which is an act of chaos and rebellion against the state. Zhang Xiaochuan laughed, thinking that Li Linfu was truly an empty vessel, holding a high position solely by reading people's faces and guessing the emperor's intentions. At this moment, other learned officials were pounding their chests in frustration, realizing this was a foolish chancellor, practically handing the knife to Zhang Xiaochuan. Sure enough, Zhang Xiaochuan interjected, the ruler should be a model for his ministers. If the ruler is unjust, the ministers may turn to other nations. The nation should be a model for the people. If the nation is unjust, the people will rise against it. Thank you, Right Chancellor, for your citation. The common people are indeed accusing the high officials of being unjust and compromising the greater good for personal gain. Li Longji was truly reaching his limit. If this continued, he would solidify the accusation of seizing the people's wealth for personal gain, which would be a huge stain on the emperor's reputation. It would be better to simply execute him for his rebellion. So he shouted, how dare you speak of anyone being unjust? Drag him out and behead him. Zhang Xiaochuan thought to himself, wow, he really intends to execute me. Luckily, I anticipated this. He immediately shouted the prepared lines. The common people have heard your majesty often speaks of following the principles of the Jingguan era. I wonder if the Emperor Taizong allowed people to speak their minds and criticize him. Upon hearing this, Li Longji was taken aback. After all, who didn't know that Emperor Taizong Li Shimin was famous for his great tolerance? If he hadn't allowed Wei Zheng to live until death, he wouldn't have such a reputation. Now, bringing him up to suppress himself left him with no temper at all. He thought, forget it. I was foolish to think about seizing your secret formula. As the Emperor, I admit my defeat today, but will deal with you later. Li Longji waved his hand in despair and said to the approaching soldiers, step back. He then turned to Zhang Xiaochuan and said, since I ascended the throne, I have emulated the principles of the Jingguan era, and it's not just talk. Now, our nation is at peace with no enemies, the people are prosperous, and the territory of our nation is the greatest in history. I do not wish to tarnish my glorious achievements today. Since I emulate the Jingguan principles, I will spare your life and let you speak freely. Zhang Xiaochuan thought to himself, you may have glorious achievements now, but in a few years, when the Engshi rebellion strikes, you will be remembered as a great sinner. However, Li Shimin was indeed effective, directly suppressing Li Longji. Since the emperor had lowered his stance, Zhang Xiaochuan felt he had achieved his goal, so he decided to be a bit more cautious. He said, the common people thank your majesty for sparing my life. Your achievements shine through history. The reason I speak frankly is for the sake of the nation. The secret formula of the common people is insignificant, and I am willing to offer it to your majesty. As he spoke, he took out a stack of documents and held them up to eye level. Gao Lishir quickly came forward to take them and present them to Li Longji. Li Longji took the documents, flipped through them, and was filled with an inexplicable shock. It was not the glass-making formula that surprised him, but the words themselves. Zhang Xiaochuan's penmanship had a unique charm that differed from traditional brush calligraphy. At the same time, Li Longji discovered that these characters were written in a special style, which is actually simplified. The magic of simplified characters lies in the fact that although they look different from traditional characters, one can still recognize them as the same word. This ability to simplify complex forms is truly remarkable. However, Zhang Xiaochuan's actions left the emperor baffled. Previously, he had issued an order for him to provide something, and Zhang had risked his life to report it. Now that the emperor said he didn't want it, Zhang rushed to offer it instead. Was there something wrong with him? Li Longji couldn't make sense of it, and thus asked, why the change in your attitude? Zhang Xiaochuan replied with an air of superiority. The common people receive the imperial decree and believe this is not the doing of a wise ruler. This is not merely about a secret formula. It concerns whether the property of all citizens of the Tang dynasty is protected. If the court does not protect the property of the common people, how can it be considered on the right path? As subjects of the Tang, we have the obligation to uphold the integrity of the court. However, after seeing your majesty today, I can tell you possess both virtue and wisdom, which is indeed a great fortune for the nation. It seems your majesty has been misled by others and, in a moment of oversight, ended up in such an absurd situation. The common people, inspired by your majesty's dignity, voluntarily offer this secret formula to you. The officials listening felt increasingly uncomfortable. They had initially thought Zhang was a person of integrity, but now he seemed to be full of flattery and deceit. However, Li Longji appreciated this reversal, as it would not tarnish his reputation but rather earn him praise for being magnanimous and open to advice. Thus, he shamelessly admitted, alas, this is all my fault. I hope all of you in the court take this as a warning. At the same time, I also wish there were more forthright individuals in the court. That would be the true fortune of our Tang dynasty. Admitting fault had become a virtue in this context. Zhang Xiaochuan bowed and said, the common people have more to say. Li Longji nodded for him to continue. Zhang Xiaochuan continued, the common people believe your majesty is right. What we do is not for one person, but for a greater cause. We think that both rulers and subjects should set aside small benefits for the sake of a greater righteousness. At this point, Li Linfu was not pleased. You, a mere commoner, dare to speak of righteousness? Do you even know what true righteousness is? Zhang Xiaochuan interjected. The common people believe that true righteousness is, private property is sacred and inviolable. While this definition of righteousness was rather narrow, at that moment, it was like a knife. What Zhang meant was that robbing my secret formula is a matter of personal gain, while protecting it from being taken is the greater righteousness. Li Linfu was left speechless. And Li Longji, observing this, intervened. All right, since the secret formula has been offered to the court, it can be considered an achievement. Do you have any requests? Zhang Xiaochuan quickly replied. The common people are grateful for the imperial favor and wish to serve the court. Li Longji thought to himself that this young man was quite clever. He clearly wanted an official position, but was speaking so grandly. Then I shall give you this opportunity. Though I wonder what you were skilled at. Li Longji intended to probe Zhang Xiaochuan's background before deciding on an official position. Just then, Yang Xinjin interjected, Your Majesty. I believe this young man is upright and quick-witted. He could be appointed as an inspector. Hearing this, Li Longji thought it was acceptable. The official rank wasn't too high, and the young man was sharp-tongued, which suited the role. An inspector? What does Minister Li think? Upon hearing this, Li Linfu felt it was inappropriate. The young man already had a conflict with him, and having him at the inspectorate could lead to trouble. Moreover, the emperor surely thought an inspector wasn't suitable for him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have asked for his opinion. Thus, he bowed and said, Although the inspector's rank isn't high, it is responsible for overseeing all officials. And one must possess high moral character to hold such a position. This young man is both righteous and wicked. It would be better to temporarily appoint him to a lower position, perhaps as a minor official, to observe his future performance. Li Longji nodded. Minister Li's words resonate with me. He then turned to Zhang Xiaochuan. What do you think? Zhang Xiaochuan had actually come here hoping to enter government service. Although the position was low, it was still a good start, and he gladly accepted. However, he pondered whether he should kneel to express his gratitude. After all, he considered the emperor a sort of ancestor, so kneeling seemed appropriate. He immediately knelt and knocked his head in thanks. Commoner, thanks your majesty for your grace. Long live the emperor. Li Longji did not allow Zhang Xiaochuan to rise, but instead stood up and left. Gao Lisher called out, dismissed. Thus ended a tumultuous session. But Zhang Xiaochuan had achieved his goal. The glass formula was of little concern to him. He aimed to make the emperor bow to him. However, Zhang Xiaochuan's true intention was to choose his path. His current military strength was too high, and with machine tools, electricity, oil, nitrocellulose, TNT, and a loyal following. Rebellion was merely a matter of time. But a successful general causes many deaths. He didn't know how many would die in the process. And yet he couldn't bear to remain passive. Therefore, he deliberately confronted the emperor. If the emperor tolerated it, it indicated a possibility for reason, allowing him to develop under the Tang dynasty, which would also benefit from his advancements. If Li Longji truly intended to kill him, he would draw his gun, take out a few first, then kidnap the emperor, and escape to start a rebellion in Xuzhou. From the current outcome, Li Longji chose to protect his reputation. Not only did he not kill Zhang Xiaochuan, but he also allowed him to enter the court like how Li Shimin treated Wei Zheng. Zhang Xiaochuan couldn't recall how he left the Xianjing Hall. He felt completely drained, as if everyone was pointing and whispering about him, unsure of what to say. Only Yang Xinjin came over and patted him on the shoulder. As soon as Zhang Xiaochuan exited the Daming Palace, two people approached him. One was Luo Xiaohu, who, upon seeing Zhang Xiaochuan standing there in good health, realized things had spiraled out of control. The other was Jia Qijuan, who rushed over, crying with snot and tears. Zhang Langjun, what do you call this? If you have any grievances, tell us. We can help you present them to the emperor. Meeting the emperor isn't impossible. So why did you have to beat the drum? You've put us in a terrible situation. He said this while sobbing, looking quite miserable. Zhang Xiaochuan felt a bit embarrassed. He had initially planned to let them meet the emperor after the court session, but now they had to go through such an ordeal, which could have serious consequences. Jia Qijuan, who brought Zhang Xiaochuan to the capital, bears an undeniable responsibility. Zhang Xiaochuan, with a look of disdain, said, I say, Jia, you are a high-ranking eunuch. Is it really appropriate to cry like this? You speak so nicely, yet we have been put in a terrible situation by you. When we go back to report, we will surely be reprimanded by the emperor and the old man. Although Zhang Xiaochuan was annoyed with Jia Qijuan, he realized he was the one who got him into this mess. Given the scale of the situation, and that not a whisper had reached him, he decided to make a small attempt to remedy it. All right, don't say I'm not helping you. I've heard that playing cards has become popular in the capital recently. I'll give you a good thing to present to the emperor. I guarantee you won't be scolded. Saying this, he took out a booklet and handed it to Jia Qijuan. Upon receiving it and flipping through, Jia Qijuan immediately broke into laughter. This is great. The sage will definitely like this. We'll take it. He then added, wait here for me. I'll go to the palace to report. Although you've already seen the sage in the court, I still need to report and see if he wants to see you again. Not feeling reassured, he called two young eunuchs to watch over Zhang Xiaochuan. Zhang Xiaochuan looked at Jia Qijuan's departing figure with bitterness. The item he had given Jia Qijuan was a guide on card tricks, copied from a gambling book called The Path of the Gambling Saint from his previous life. Zhang Xiaochuan sighed and looked up at the sky, thinking how useless all the skills he had learned were. He hadn't won a single game on the long journey from Shu Prefecture to the capital. Although he had made several stops along the way, he had traveled quite a distance, and after arriving in the capital, he had been busy planning his retreat. He had woken up early that morning, and now he was so tired that he could almost fall asleep while waiting for Jia Qijuan to return from the palace. He did not know how much time had passed, but just as he was about to doze off, Jia Qijuan returned, and Zhang Xiaochuan missed his chance to sleep again. However, seeing Jia Qijuan in such a good mood, it seemed that the report went smoothly. Without waiting for Zhang Xiaochuan to ask, he said, "The sage has a decree for you, Zhang Xiaochuan, listen carefully." Zhang Xiaochuan quickly bowed in a gesture of respect, looking attentive. Jia Qijuan imitated the emperor's tone and said, "I do not wish to see you again today. Remember to bring the appointment document when you come to express your gratitude. Now, leave." After saying this, Jia Qijuan quickly switched back to his normal tone and added, "Young Master Zhang, this is the emperor's decree, not my words." Zhang Xiaochuan thought to himself that the emperor was a bit petty. It was just that he lost face today. If he did not want to see him, then fine. He could go back to sleep. After returning to the inn, Zhang Xiaochuan realized he would be in the capital for quite a while. So he asked Luo Xiaohu to find a house to rent for now. He also wanted to make contact with those monitoring the Yang family, as he wanted to know about Yang Yuhuan's situation as soon as he woke up. Moreover, he decided that apart from people from the palace, he would not see anyone else. After giving his instructions, Zhang Xiaochuan hurriedly ate a little and went to sleep. It was still noon, and he ended up sleeping until the next day at noon. Zhang Xiaochuan felt that if it weren't for his hunger, he could have slept for another half day. Just after finishing his meal, someone from the palace arrived. It was a young eunuch he did not recognize, who brought Zhang Xiaochuan his official appointment document. According to the usual procedure, this matter would typically be handled by the relevant department, and documents usually take at least 10 days or half a month to process. However, due to special circumstances, the items were quickly delivered by a palace eunuch. Zhang Xiaochuan received the official document, changed into official attire, and followed the young eunuch into the palace to meet the emperor. The route to the palace this time was much shorter, as they were heading to the Xingqing Palace instead of the main palace. Xingqing Palace was built on the site of the former residence before the emperor ascended the throne, and he often preferred to stay there after court sessions. Zhang Xiaochuan followed the young eunuch and arrived at the Daitong Hall. After announcing their presence, he entered the hall, where the emperor was reading. Zhang Xiaochuan hurriedly stepped forward to pay his respects, but the emperor waved his hand to indicate he need not bow and continued reading. Zhang Xiaochuan quietly observed the emperor, who was engrossed in a small booklet, clearly the excerpt of the Path of the Gambling Saint previously given to Jia Qijuan. He couldn't help but think to himself, he thought the emperor was reading official documents, but it turned out he was studying gambling techniques. After about an hour, just when Zhang Xiaochuan was feeling drowsy, the emperor finally set down the book. Though calm on the surface, his heart was tumultuous. This young man was undoubtedly extraordinary. Not only was he intelligent, but he also displayed remarkable composure and patience, standing there for half an hour without showing any impatience or anxiety, qualities that were rare among the court officials. If the emperor knew that Zhang Xiaochuan had been a seasoned worker in his previous life, standing and enduring lectures while waiting for his boss to review materials was nothing out of the ordinary, he might not have been so surprised. The booklet thoroughly analyzed poker techniques, and he had heard that poker was invented by Zhang Xiaochuan. Was this booklet also written by him? He was truly brilliant. An unparalleled genius. Zhang Xiaochuan bowed and calmly replied, "Thank you for your praise, Your Majesty." The emperor was taken aback again. This young man was rather self-assured. Most people would humbly say they were undeserving of such praise, but he simply accepted it as a matter of course. The emperor's expression suddenly turned stern. "Do you know that yesterday in the court, I wanted to kill you several times?" Zhang Xiaochuan replied, "I do not know." This response completely caught the emperor off guard. Normally, if an emperor told an official that he had considered executing him for something he did, that official would certainly be terrified and kneel to beg for mercy. However, Zhang Xiaochuan's reply of "I do not know" was meant to display the emperor's authority and tease him, but it left him suddenly feeling the urge to execute Zhang Xiaochuan. Thus, the emperor raised his voice. "I said I wanted to kill you." Although Zhang Xiaochuan wasn't particularly skilled at reading between the lines, he understood the emperor's meaning and knew he needed to admit fault and provide the emperor with a way to save face. However, he was reluctant, after all. He had his own grievances, but there was no need to provoke the emperor further, so he decided to give in. Suddenly, as if realizing something, Zhang Xiaochuan knelt on the ground and exclaimed, "I deserve to die 1,000 deaths. Please forgive me, Your Majesty." Li Longji finally regained his composure and said in a normal tone, "Get up. I am not a petty person, but I must remind you that one should not act recklessly. One must consider whether they can bear the consequences of their actions. Thank you for your guidance, Your Majesty." He said this, but in his heart he thought, "We're in the same boat. I've heard that you call yourself a minor celestial master in the Shu region. Is that right?" Zhang Xiaochuan thought to himself that it seemed the emperor had already investigated him. However, he was puzzled about what the title meant, as he had only referred to himself as a minor celestial master once or twice. How could I dare to call myself a minor celestial master? That is just something ignorant commoners shout. Zhang Xiaochuan knew that the Li Tang royal family claimed their ancestor was the founder of Taoism, so one cannot casually claim to be a celestial master. Each lineage of celestial masters has made unique contributions to Taoism. So if Zhang Xiaochuan were to claim he was a celestial master, it would be a serious taboo. Li Longji acknowledged Zhang Xiaochuan's statement with a sound of agreement and continued, "You have performed many miraculous feats in the Shu region. I summoned you here to ascertain whether these are true." "What miraculous feats does Your Majesty refer to?" Li Longji replied, "I have heard that you possess a magical lamp that requires no oil and can illuminate the night as brightly as day, and it cannot be extinguished by the wind." Zhang Xiaochuan almost laughed out loud, as the emperor's mention of the wind reminded him of when they first installed electric lights in the village, and people would blow at the bulbs. However, laughing was not appropriate at this moment, so he restrained himself and responded, "This object is called an electric lamp. It indeed can make the night as bright as day. It cannot be extinguished by the wind, and it is not prone to catching fire, nor does it produce smoke. Is that so? This object can be presented to your majesty, but to make the lamp work, it requires electricity, which must be transmitted through wires. And a power plant must be built to generate electricity." Stop. Before Zhang Xiaochuan could continue, Li Longji interrupted. "Are you saying this is a construction project? Can you build it?" "Your majesty, you hit the nail on the head. That is exactly what I mean." Upon hearing this, Li Longji asked, "What resources and time do you need for this?" Zhang Xiaochuan realized that he needed to handle this carefully. It couldn't be just about installing a lamp for the emperor. So he replied, "I do not need your majesty's money. You only need to allocate a piece of land on the outskirts of the city for me and agree to a small request. And this matter can be completed in 3 months. Allocating land is a trivial matter. Please state your request." Seeing that the emperor was willing to negotiate, Zhang Xiaochuan expressed his thoughts. "Once the power plant is built, there will be surplus electricity. Just using it for the palace will not exhaust it. I believe it can supply power to the entire Chang'an city. Of course, this electricity cannot be free, as generating power requires coal and management, which incurs costs." Li Longji interrupted, "So you intend to charge for the electricity? But that would be using public resources for private gain." Seizing the moment during Li Longji's pause, Zhang Xiaochuan interjected, "All operations will be managed by me, and the profits will be divided, 30 to the national treasury, 30 to the inner treasury. And I will keep 40 for the development and maintenance of the power plant." Upon hearing that he would also receive money, Li Longji immediately dismissed the concern about public resources. He was only interested in one question and quickly asked, "What is the profit from that 30? Zhang Xiaochuan roughly calculated in his mind that with over 2 million people in Chang'an, if 80% of them used electricity, and considering that even a light bulb would mean one person consumes 2 kilowatt-hours every 2 days, the monthly consumption would be close to 300 million kilowatt-hours. If he could earn 1/10 of a coin per kilowatt-hour, that would amount to 300,000 guan in a month." After making the calculation, Zhang Xiaochuan replied, "According to my estimation, we could earn about 300,000. "What? 300,000 coins? So much?" As soon as Zhang Xiaochuan mentioned 300,000, he was interrupted by the emperor. However, he meant 300,000 guan. Who would have thought the emperor would be so excited over 300,000 coins? He wondered if saying 300,000 guan would frighten the emperor to death. Yet, he had to clarify, as the difference was 1,000 times. "Your majesty, it's not 300,000 coins, it's 300,000 guan." Li Longji was momentarily speechless. The amount shocked him. Wasn't that over 3 million guan in a year? That was almost 1/10 of the annual tax revenue of the national treasury. As the emperor, being so shaken by this amount was somewhat embarrassing, and he felt his face flush. After a brief pause, he said, "Since it's such a large sum, are you suggesting taking 40%? Zhang Xiaochuan seemed to have anticipated the emperor's question and responded, "Your majesty, the initial investment for building the power plant will not be less than 1 million guan, and there will be maintenance costs later. The money I request is for operating the power plant. It's possible that in the end, I won't even get 1/10 of it." Li Longji thought it over and replied, "This is indeed not a small matter. You should write a memorial about it. I need to discuss it with the other ministers." Zhang Xiaochuan appeared somewhat hesitant. "Your majesty, writing the memorial is easy, but my status? Well, as the saying goes, without a proper title, one cannot speak properly. How about this? I will arrange for you to take a position in the Ministry of Works. Once this matter is accomplished, there will naturally be promotions." Zhang Xiaochuan quickly expressed his gratitude. Then Li Longji added, "I have heard that you have subdued the steel beast, which is said to possess immense strength capable of breaking mountains and splitting stones, breathing as if swallowing clouds and exhaling mist." Upon hearing this, Zhang Xiaochuan couldn't help but admire the description. The excavator was being portrayed almost as a living creature. He had to clarify, "Your majesty, this steel beast is actually a type of machine that I have created. I will have someone deliver a few for you to play with." "Ah, you are thoughtful." This time, Li Longji did not ask for any secret formulas, as he understood that one couldn't extract everything at once. After chatting a bit more with Zhang Xiaochuan, he allowed him to leave. Chapter 182. Renting a house without a proper entrance. As soon as Zhang Xiaochuan arrived at the inn, a young eunuch came to deliver the official documents for his appointment to the Ministry of Works. Since the emperor was in such a hurry, Zhang Xiaochuan didn't want to procrastinate and quickly set about writing the memorial. The key issue was that he had never written one before. However, this was not a problem for him. He could always consult his superiors. Now that he had a position, he wasn't in a rush. He planned to complete the onboarding process and meet the officials at the Ministry of Works. Just before leaving, he slapped his forehead. He had the chance to inquire about Yang Yuan. It seemed he wasn't cut out for official duties, as he was already overwhelmed even before starting. The onboarding process at the Ministry of Works went smoothly, but he couldn't shake the feeling that people were whispering and pointing at him. The officials of the Tang dynasty seemed to have too much time on their hands, as there were no opposite gender colleagues in the workplace, yet they were still so gossipy. If those officials gossiping about Zhang Xiaochuan knew his thoughts, they would surely be furious. Just yesterday, he was banging the drum to report to the emperor and the prime minister, Yet he still has that ridiculous hairstyle. The most critical point is that a person like him hasn't been punished yet and has come to our ministry. It would be strange if he weren't being discussed. After finishing the procedures with the clerk, Zhang Xiaochuan wanted to find his superior to discuss writing a memorial, thinking that his superior would be happy to assist, as it would be published in the name of the ministry and thus contribute to its achievements. Unexpectedly, the clerk led him to a separate courtyard, which puzzled Zhang Xiaochuan. His superior was at most a 6th-rank official, and having a separate office would be impressive enough. How could there be an entire courtyard? While he pondered, the clerk stopped in front of the main hall, where the door was wide open. The clerk said to Zhang Xiaochuan, "Minister Han is waiting for you inside. You may go in by yourself. After meeting Minister Han, come find me, and I will take you to meet the undersecretary of the ministry." Zhang Xiaochuan responded affirmatively, indicating he understood. Once the clerk left, he entered and saw an elderly man in a purple robe sitting at a desk reading documents. He stepped forward to pay his respects. "I am Zhang Xiaochuan, greeting Minister Han." It was only then that Han Xiu lifted his head to look at Zhang Xiaochuan and gestured for him to sit, indicating that he need not bow. Zhang Xiaochuan took a seat to the side and heard Han Xiu say, "Impressive for a young man. Yesterday in the court, you were able to argue your case with reason. You display the qualities of a learned minister. But why have you come to serve in the ministry today?" Since Han Xiu had retired from the position of prime minister, Zhang Xiaochuan recognized him as someone well-versed in the history of the Tang dynasty. He was known for his calm demeanor and aversion to conflict. However, Zhang Xiaochuan was quite the independent thinker, as evidenced by his actions in the court yesterday. He suspected that Han Xiu had called him in to provide some guidance. Thus, he answered honestly, "It is because I have some expertise in construction. Before becoming an official, I invented a type of electric lamp that can illuminate the night like day. His Majesty wishes for me to oversee its construction, hence my appointment to the ministry." Han Xiu nodded but inquired carefully, "This electric lamp you speak of must be a device, but why come to the ministry?" "The production of devices is primarily the responsibility of the Bureau of Supplies and the Bureau of Crafts," Zhang Xiaochuan replied, "although it is a device. The electric lamp requires electricity, and to generate electricity, a power plant is necessary, which falls under construction." This time, Han Xiu did not press further, instead stating, "In that case, serve diligently in the ministry for the country. Do not be negligent." Zhang Xiaochuan promptly agreed. Noticing that Zhang Xiaochuan seemed hesitant to speak, Han Xiu encouraged him, "It seems you have something to say. Feel free to speak up." Zhang Xiaochuan explained, "I have limited knowledge and am not skilled in writing memorials. But the construction of the power plant requires a report, so I would like to ask the minister for guidance." During the Tang dynasty, the imperial examination was not the mainstream path to officialdom, so Han Xiu did not look down on Zhang Xiaochuan for receiving his position as a gift. Instead, he found Zhang Xiaochuan to be sincere. Nodding, he said, "It is commendable to recognize one's own shortcomings. Let me explain to you how to write a memorial." Han Xiu explained the format and writing norms of memorials to Zhang Xiaochuan, which was relatively straightforward, similar to writing letters. However, when it came to the content, Zhang Xiaochuan was completely baffled. The various words and phrases had special expressions, and it wasn't just simple vernacular. Seeing Zhang Xiaochuan's confusion, Han Xiu specifically took out a few memorials for him to look at. After reading them, Zhang Xiaochuan felt even more overwhelmed. They were all written in classical Chinese, filled with allusions, and without a cultural background. It was truly incomprehensible. Recognizing that this was not something that could be remedied in a short time, Han Xiu suggested that Zhang Xiaochuan write in plain language. After he finished, Han Xiu would help refine it, since Zhang Xiaochuan wasn't qualified to write a memorial himself. Eventually, it would be submitted in the name of the Ministry of Works, meaning both their names would appear on it. Writing in plain language would be simpler, and it would only be a rough framework of the plan. Plus, after spending over half a year in the Tang dynasty, Zhang Xiaochuan had a certain understanding of material allocation and project progress. Therefore, regarding the construction of the power plant, he calculated the time needed as double the planned duration to avoid running out of time later. When Zhang Xiaochuan returned to the inn, a plum blossom guard was already waiting for him, saying that he had rented a house. Luo Xiaohu was tidying up at the new house and asked Zhang Xiaochuan to go there directly after he returned. Upon hearing the address of the rented house, Zhang Xiaochuan's expression turned strange. Pinkangfeng, isn't that the gathering place of the red light district in Chang'an? After finishing up, he definitely needed to experience the scenery of Pinkangfeng. Upon arrival, Zhang Xiaochuan's eyes widened. Could someone of his low rank really live in such a grand residence? However, the plum blossom guard led him around the main gate and entered through a side door, leaving Zhang Xiaochuan somewhat bewildered. He asked Luo Xiaohu, who was approaching, "Is this still a shared rental? We can't even use the main entrance and have to use the side door?" Luo Xiaohu replied somewhat awkwardly, "Well, this residence actually belongs to Princess Taiping." "What? The residence of Princess Taiping can be rented?" Luo Xiaohu seemed to anticipate Zhang Xiaochuan's astonishment and explained calmly. "This house was left after Princess Taiping's family was confiscated. It was originally not for rent, but now it seems the imperial treasury is lacking, so they've put it up for rent. However, no one dared to rent it before, partly because the rent is high, and partly due to fearing to be associated with Princess Taiping's fate. But you once said that often one must go against the grain. The more dangerous the place, the safer it is. So, renting Princess Taiping's house actually shows that we are upright and proper, which is why I boldly rented it. Moreover, you required it to be close to the imperial city and large enough. This was the only place available. After hearing the explanation, Zhang Xiaochuan nodded, agreeing that Luo Xiaohu had made the right decision. However, there was still one question unanswered, so he continued. But what does this have to do with us not being able to use the main entrance? This is because the main entrance of Princess Taiping's residence has very high regulations. If someone of insufficient rank rents this house, they cannot use the main entrance. It's just the way it is. When you become a duke one day, you can use the main entrance. Zhang Xiaochuan glared at Luo Xiao. You really think highly of me. But aside from not being able to use the main entrance, this residence is quite suitable. At the same time, he muttered to himself, this really is a feudal society. It's like renting a house without a proper front door. Chapter 183. The focus has shifted again. Luo Xiaohu led Zhang Xiaochuan to a recently tidied room and suggested that Zhang Xiaochuan settle in first. Upon entering, Zhang Xiaochuan noticed that the room was divided into two parts, a bedroom and a study. The study was equipped with ink, brushes, paper, and an inkstone. So Zhang Xiaochuan began writing a memorial. As he wasn't proficient in classical Chinese, he could only write in vernacular. For someone who had been writing reports for over 10 years, producing such a rough draft of a planning report wasn't too difficult. Out of habit from his previous life, Zhang Xiaochuan prepared a simple budget table for the materials and manpower needed for the project. He also created a progress schedule based on some important project milestones. Both tables included specific data that Zhang Xiaochuan estimated, which he intended to attach to the memorial. He also prepared an investment return forecast table. But considering the potential profits were substantial, he decided not to include it in the memorial. He wanted to avoid the possibility of high-ranking officials in the court seizing the project for the treasury. Regarding the profits, he planned to keep it vague. Once the project was completed, it wouldn't matter if they found out. After finishing the memorial, Zhang Xiaochuan remembered to inquire about Yang Yuhuan. There was still a month until her wedding with Li Zhao, and currently, Yang Yuhuan didn't have any major issues. However, she was under a form of house arrest. Feeling downcast and looking quite haggard, it wouldn't be easy to arrange a meeting with her. Zhang Xiaochuan needed to contact Yang Yuhuan to reassure her, as he would need the help of Yang Guozhong's wife, Pei Rou, to facilitate a meeting. Thus, he instructed someone to secretly reach out to Yang Guozhong and his wife. By the time he finished these tasks, it was already late at night. The next day, Zhang Xiaochuan took the completed report, or rather, the memorial, and arrived early at the Ministry of Works. Since Han Xiu had to attend the morning court, he wouldn't return to the office until around noon, allowing Zhang Xiaochuan some time to revise the memorial. As he got busy, time flew by. When he finally finished revising the memorial, he realized it was getting late and that Han Xiu must have returned. Zhang Xiaochuan took the memorial to Han Xiu's private courtyard, and as expected, the front gate was wide open. The attendant at the gate recognized Zhang Xiaochuan and led him directly inside. When he saw Minister Han, he was still reviewing official documents. Zhang Xiaochuan hurriedly paid his respects. Minister Han stood up to return the gesture and then asked, "Is the memorial ready?" Zhang Xiaochuan quickly handed over the memorial, saying, "Indeed. I hope Minister Han can take a look." Minister Han examined the manuscript handed to him by Zhang Xiaochuan, displaying a range of emotions, first surprise, then joy, followed by a frown, and finally deep contemplation. Zhang Xiaochuan was puzzled. Could a report evoke such a rich spectrum of feelings? After a while, Minister Han finally spoke. "Your writing seems not to be done with a brush, yet it possesses great beauty and charm. I've been pondering this and can't find the answer. May I ask how you wrote this?" Hearing Han Xiu's words, Zhang Xiaochuan almost knelt. After all that expressive thought, he was only curious about how the characters were written, and he hoped he hadn't overlooked the content. Zhang Xiaochuan replied, "This character was written with a fountain pen. The pens we commonly use for daily writing are soft, which I refer to as soft brush writing. The pen I use for writing is hard, so it's called hard pen, which is also referred to as a fountain pen." As he spoke, Zhang Xiaochuan took out a fountain pen and handed it to Han Xiu. Han Xiu understood the words but was puzzled. A fountain pen? Could it be something made of metal? Writing with metal was hard to comprehend. Holding this hard metallic object, which was slightly thicker than a regular writing brush and flat at both ends, he wondered how to write with it. Seeing Han Xiu struggling to use the pen, Zhang Xiaochuan took it back and demonstrated how to use it. After the demonstration, Han Xiu picked up the fountain pen again, removed the cap, placed it at the end, and imitated Zhang Xiaochuan's grip to write on the paper. After writing a few lines, he was amazed. This pen is quite magical. With even ink flow and easy to handle, it's really convenient for daily official use. Zhang Xiaochuan sighed, noting that as a former high-ranking official, Han Xiu's mind was quick, immediately thinking of practical applications. He responded, "What you say is absolutely right, Minister Han. I wonder if it's easy to make this pen? Can you part with it?" Han Xiu asked. "The production process is quite complicated, but you don't need to make it yourself. This item should be available at several major merchants," Zhang Xiaochuan replied. Han Xiu, thinking Zhang Xiaochuan had bought the pen, asked, "What is the price of this pen?" Zhang Xiaochuan scratched his head. "I really don't know. I made this one myself, and the merchants sell theirs sourced from my family, but I usually don't handle those matters, so I'm unaware of the price." Han Xiu nodded, probably planning to buy a few pens to try later. Zhang Xiaochuan continued, "Minister Han, is there anything wrong with the content of this memorial?" Han Xiu suddenly realized, "The memorial, right? I got so caught up in the novelty of the writing that I forgot to check the content. Let me take a look now." Zhang Xiaochuan was exasperated. After all that, he hadn't read a single word. Han Xiu picked up the memorial draft again, and his expression changed from confusion to realization, then to joy, followed by surprise, a frown, and then contemplation. Just as Zhang Xiaochuan was about to speak, Han Xiu seemed to have figured it out and continued reading the memorial. When he reached the last two tables, his expression changed again, but thankfully, this time he didn't ponder too deeply. Otherwise, Zhang Xiaochuan would have been quite frustrated. Han Xiu said, I thought the writing itself was astonishing, but the content surprised me even more. However, it seems like your writing is read horizontally, from left to right. Also, the various symbols you use to break up the sentences make it less ambiguous and easier to read. And your writing style is quite unusual. Zhang Xiaochuan felt uneasy, sensing that Han Xiu's attention might be drifting too far, and things seemed to be heading in a strange direction. He quickly interrupted, Minister Han, let's discuss the content of the memorial. Those details can be examined later. Who would have thought that Han Xiu slammed the table and exclaimed, nonsense. I believe you are the one chasing after trivialities. Although I don't understand why you write this way, I see it as more reasonable. I find your writing style to be more convenient and efficient. Once thoroughly researched and promoted, it could be a monumental achievement, leaving a mark in history. How can this mere trinket compare? Zhang Xiaochuan was also taken aback, realizing that punctuation and simplified characters were the focus, while the power plant was dismissed as a mere trinket. Does this old man not know that electricity is the greatest invention in history? The application of electricity has multiplied human productivity millions of times. Of course, this couldn't be directly conveyed to Han Xiu, for now. He could only find a way to redirect the old man's attention. In Chapter 184, the document with the report, the first step in persuading someone is to feign agreement. Therefore, Zhang Xiaochuan followed Han Xiu's lead and said, what you say, Minister Han, is absolutely right. However, the symbols in this form of shorthand are rather profound and complicated, not something that can be explained in just a few sentences. How about this? I will summarize them into a booklet and then discuss it in detail with you. Han Xiu considered this and stopped fixating on the issue, saying, just remember, we need to talk about the content. Speaking of which, Han Xiu's expression turned peculiar again. Zhang Xiaochuan was startled and quickly asked, is there something wrong with the content? This old man is going to drive me crazy. Minister Han, please feel free to speak your mind. The content is indeed difficult for me to handle. Although the entire piece is written in plain language and lacks any elegant phrasing, I am unsure how to revise it. While there are some terms I still don't fully comprehend, I can sense that the content directly addresses the essence of the matter. Each sentence narrates the situation clearly, with a well-defined structure and precise word choices. Zhang Xiaochuan gazed at Han Xiu, waiting for him to continue, but to his frustration, the old man hesitated again. This was driving him mad. Zhang Xiaochuan hurriedly asked, so what? So, the revision can only be done by me rewriting it. Then just rewrite it. Is that a problem? Rewriting makes it difficult to fully express the intentions behind your document, which complicates things. Zhang Xiaochuan thought for a moment and said, then why not just submit my original content directly? Han Xiu replied, it seems we have no choice but to do so. And that final budget and progress report you included is truly clever. It integrates perfectly with your text. Once the two had settled on this, Han Xiu submitted the document, and they awaited a response from above. The Ministry of Works did not assign Zhang Xiaochuan any other specific tasks for the next few days, leaving him relatively free. However, once the document was submitted, it immediately caused a stir. When Li Longji saw the document, his expression mirrored that of Han Xiu's. After pondering for a moment, he immediately summoned the Chancellor and the ministers to the palace for a meeting. Upon entering the palace, they examined the hard-pen calligraphy, simplified characters, and punctuation, discussing it for half a day before realizing that the document was about constructing a power plant and installing electric lights. While everyone was unsure what this was about, they deemed it unimportant, thinking that it only required a few hundred acres of barren land, so they unanimously approved it and continued their discussions. If Zhang Xiaochuan knew, he would surely be furious. You guys who don't know any better are completely out of touch. When it came time to review the budget and progress reports, the officials split into two factions. One group believed that the time and effort spent on these plans were wasted, as they lacked precision and served no real purpose beyond attracting attention. The other group, however, thought the reports were excellent, clear, and could enhance the efficiency of higher-ups' reviews, as well as increase the persuasiveness of the matters presented, especially the progress report, which allowed the higher-ups to grasp the status of the projects effectively. In short, the two sides argued fiercely, but Li Longji found it pointless and ultimately set the reports aside. The next day, when Li Longji summoned Zhang Xiaochuan to discuss the power plant matter, Zhang Xiaochuan presented a third report, the investment return analysis. Upon seeing it, Li Longji was pleased, as this report clearly laid out the income and expenditure. He decided it must be promoted immediately. He summoned the Minister of Revenue and instructed that this return analysis report be implemented starting from the ministry. Consequently, there was widespread discontent within the ministry, with everyone blaming Zhang Xiaochuan, the so-called report king, for creating unnecessary reports. Zhang Xiaochuan, however, felt innocent, stating that this was just basic practice. If he really wanted to go all out, he could have included bar charts, pie charts, and even some cartoons. Li Longji also urged Zhang Xiaochuan to organize the punctuation marks and simplified characters. However, upon returning home, Zhang Xiaochuan didn't compile a list of punctuation marks and their simplified counterparts. Instead, He sent someone back to Shu Prefecture to retrieve existing materials that he had prepared earlier for teaching the locals. The internal guards established a discreet helipad in a secluded village outside the city, allowing helicopters to fly back to Shu Prefecture for information transmission and transportation of essential supplies. When Zhang Xiaochuan handed the materials on punctuation and simplified characters to Han Xiu immediately went to the palace to report to the emperor. Soon after, the court launched an enthusiastic promotion, and as a result, Zhang Xiaochuan's official rank was raised by 2 levels, from an 8th grade official to a 6th grade deputy minister of the Ministry of Works. However, Zhang Xiaochuan was not concerned about this and instead focused on constructing the power plant. He first built a row of houses to serve as offices and living quarters for workers. Zhang Xiaochuan often stayed there, which allowed him to avoid reporting to the Ministry of Works and secretly carry out various tasks. Thanks to the support of the emperor and Han Xiu, the power plant and electrical wiring projects proceeded smoothly according to plan. In the backyard of the Yang residence, Pei Rou held Yang Yuhuan's hand and, feeling distressed, said, "Sister, it's only been a few days. How have you become so thin?" Yang Yuhuan sighed. "If it weren't for the Yang family's reputation, I would really want to end it all." Pei Rou playfully tapped Yang Yuhuan's head and said, "What nonsense are you talking? You need to live well. Stop talking about dying all the time. Look what I brought you." Only then did Yang Yuhuan notice the food box Pei Rou was holding. Pei Rou opened the lid, and a wave of milky fragrance wafted out. Yang Yuhuan exclaimed, "This is cake. How could there be cake? Is there cake in the capital now?" "Not yet." Pei Rou replied, "But someone asked me to bring this for you." "What? You mean Xiaochuan is in the capital? Where is he? I want to see him." As she spoke, she was about to get up and rush outside, but Pei Rou pulled her back, saying, "Little sister, don't be anxious. Why does your mind go blank whenever that guy is mentioned? Can you even go out now? Besides, if you really see him, wouldn't everything you did to part ways with him be in vain?" Yang Yuhuan thought about it, and could only sit down in despair, tears streaming down her face. "Am I really never going to see him again? Why does fate have to treat me this way?" Seeing Yang Yuhuan cry, Pei Rou felt heartbroken and hugged her. "Don't cry. Does he have any message for me? He said the cake is for you, and you shouldn't share it with others." This sounded so strange that it clearly wasn't what Yang Yuhuan wanted to hear, and she ended up crying again. Pei Rou comforted her for a while before leaving. After Pei Rou left, Yang Yuhuan calmed down and began to eat the cake. To her surprise, her knife hit something hard inside. She quickly peeled away the cake and found a bamboo tube about the size of a finger inside. Excited, Yang Yuhuan broke the bamboo tube and indeed found a letter inside. Chapter 185. The Wedding Escape exposed. Pei Rou unfolded the letter. Recognizing the elegant and strong handwriting, it was definitely a letter from Zhang Xiaochuan. "You know, seeing this letter is like meeting you. Although it has only been half a month since we last met, it feels like 100 years. I heard you've lost weight, and I'm very distressed. You must take good care of yourself. I have a way to bring you back to my side while ensuring the safety of your family." The plan was signed as, "Your loving Xiaochuan." The letter concluded with, "Burn." After reading Zhang Xiaochuan's letter was like a reassurance for Yang Yuhuan. After reading it, she felt a wave of relaxation wash over her, and her mood improved instantly. Soon, hunger struck, and she picked up the cake on the table and started eating heartily. At the residence of Prince Yang Huai, Princess Xiani was sitting in the garden enjoying the scenery. It was now early spring, and the new buds and leaves were a vibrant green, creating a lovely sight, which lifted her spirits. At that moment, her personal maid rushed over, exclaiming, "Princess, a secret letter has arrived at the door, concerning the marriage of the crown prince. I didn't know how to handle it, so I came to report." Princess Xiani frowned slightly and asked, "Where's the letter?" The maid quickly presented it to her. After reading the contents, Princess Xiani became furious, slamming her hand on the table and shouting, "What audacity! How could they do such a despicable thing? This is a blatant disregard for the royal family." Turning to the maid, she asked, "Where's the prince?" The maid replied, "He is still on duty and hasn't returned." "Very well. Summon the guards and prepare the carriage. I'm going to the Yang residence." "Yes." At the Yang residence, Yang Xianin was pacing back and forth in the main hall when Yang Yuhuan walked in. Yang Xianin immediately handed her the letter. "Look at this. What is going on? This is the end." Yang Yuhuan was astonished as she read the letter. "How is it that my elopement is written in here? And it seems this letter is addressed to Princess Xiani. How did it end up in my uncle's hands?" Yang Xianin, probably tired from walking, sat down with a sigh and said, "A little beggar delivered it." He also mentioned that a similar letter had already been sent to the prince's residence. Yang Yuhuan exclaimed, "So it's true?" "Yes, Princess Xiani already knows about your elopement. Fortunately, the letter only mentioned that you were unwilling to marry, without stating your whereabouts." However, Yang Yuhuan was not as worried as her uncle. Instead, she raised her own doubts seriously. "But if this person reported us to the princess, why would they also warn us?" Yang Xuanjue replied, "That is precisely what I am puzzled about. What do you think this person's intentions are?" The uncle added, "Regardless of the messenger's intentions, we should consider how to respond to the princess, right?" Yang Xuanjue sighed again and said, "That's true. I've been thinking about this matter, but I'm at a loss right now. My mind is quite chaotic. Uncle, I have a plan. What do you think?" After Yang Yuhuan shared her idea, Yang Xuanjue found it feasible. "Then let us go with your plan. It seems the princess would come to confront them soon, so I will return to the courtyard and pretend to be unaware." Yang Xuanjue sent someone to the government office to ask for leave, insisting on staying home today. as he didn't know when the princess would arrive. Just as the person went out to request leave, a servant reported that the princess had arrived. Without waiting for an announcement, the princess directly barged into the main hall. Seeing Yang Xuanjue there, she immediately began to rage. Yang Xuanjue, what has your family done? Are you going to give me an explanation? Although Yang Xuanjue knew what the princess was referring to, he pretended to be ignorant and asked in confusion. I beg for the princess's forgiveness. I truly do not know what you are talking about. Don't know? Then let me make you aware. She threw a letter at Yang Xuanjue's head. He quickly picked it up and pretended to read it, showcasing his acting skills. While the princess didn't suspect that he already knew. After reading the letter, Yang Xuanjue sat down on the ground in shock, muttering, how could this be? This is the end, it's all over. After this, he seemed to suddenly come to his senses, kneeling at the princess's feet, bowing his head and pleading. I beg the princess to spare our family. Yunu is still young and doesn't he understand? She was momentarily bewitched. I plead for the princess to let the Yang family go. One must admit that Yang Xuanjue was quite skilled. He had even bruised his head. But if he didn't act, he might really lose his head. The princess kicked Yang Xuanjue away. Stop wailing. Where is that little wretch now? If she isn't found, then your Yang family really has no reason to exist. Reporting to the princess, she has been found. She has been found. Then call her over. I want to ask if my royal family is unworthy of your Yang family. What is wrong with my brother? Yang Xuanjue dared not respond and could only say yes. Yes, yes, I will send someone to call for my daughter. He then shouted to a nearby servant. Why aren't you quickly going to summon Yunu? Before long, Yang Yuhuan arrived and, upon seeing the princess, immediately knelt on the ground. This servant greets the princess. I know my sins are grave. I beg the princess to grant me death and spare the Yang family. The princess slammed the table. You have guts, you wretched maid, daring to seek death. Today Yang Xuanjue hurriedly stepped forward to stop her. Princess, please wait, allow me to speak. Seeing the princess return to her seat, Yang Xuanjue scolded Yang Yuhuan. Shut your mouth and kneel properly. Do you want to bring ruin to the entire Yang family? After scolding Yang Yuhuan, he bowed to Princess Xieni and said, my daughter was momentarily lost in her thoughts, which led her to commit the foolish act of leaving home. Fortunately, it hasn't resulted in a major mistake, and I have already persuaded her, ensuring she won't do it again. I hope the princess can give my family another chance. Princess Xieni sneered. A chance? Why should I give you a chance? You all deserve to die. Your Highness, although the fault lies with my family, we are not afraid of death. However, if this matter spreads, it will ultimately damage the royal family's reputation. Moreover, this marriage was facilitated by you and the prince. If it causes many troubles, it would likely not be good for you either. Princess Xieni was now furious, yet helpless. After all, the facts were as Yang Xuanjie had said. This marriage was initiated by her, and if any issues arose, it would be embarrassing for her. However, she couldn't let the Yang family take advantage of her, so she replied, Humph, what if it's not beneficial? With my mother protecting me, I would only be reprimanded a bit. But if I were to destroy your Yang family today, what would you do? Yang Xuanjie respectfully replied, even if you were to destroy the Yang family today, we would have nothing to say. Our lives are insignificant compared to the princess's face. Well, at least you know how to speak. Go on, she said. I think that since the matter of Yunu's departure hasn't spread yet, and now that she has been found, why not proceed with the original 6 rites? Not acceptable. Although Princess Xieni verbally refused Yang Xuanjie's request, she actually knew that this was the only way. If it escalated, it would only harm the royal family's reputation, and she would also face consequences. However, having come to demand accountability, it would be a joke to let them off easily. So she said, you expect me to let you go so easily? Are you toying with me? In this day and age, no one was a fool. Yang Xuanjie quickly realized that the princess was seeking something in return and signaled to Yang Yuhuan. Yang Yuhuan immediately understood her uncle's intention and interjected, Your Highness, I acknowledge my mistake and have angered you. So I am willing to present this item to seek your forgiveness. As she spoke, she pointed to a maid behind her, who was holding a vanity box slightly larger than a shoebox. Upon hearing Yang Yuhuan's words, the maid walked towards Princess Xieni with the vanity box. This vanity box was a gift from Zhang Xiaochuan to Yang Yuhuan, encrusted with shimmering rhinestones that emitted a dazzling brilliance. The lid was inlaid with a glass mirror, and inside was a small round mirror and a necklace studded with rhinestones. Although these items had begun to circulate in the market, their availability was limited. With so many nobles and aristocrats, there simply weren't enough to go around, and the people of the region had an inherent tradition of coveting what was scarce. Therefore, even with money, one couldn't buy such items. They were indeed hard currency. After playing with it for a while, Princess Xieni picked up the necklace and called to Yang Yuhuan, Stop kneeling. Come and put it on me to have a look. Yang Yuhuan complied and stood up to put the necklace on the princess, while Yang Xuanjie secretly wiped the sweat from his brow, relieved to have escaped a disaster. Princess Xieni looked at the necklace around her neck in the mirror, growing more satisfied with each glance. After indulging herself, she handed the vanity box to her personal maid and said, Since you are so sincere, I will forgive you this time. However, what if such a thing happens again? Yang Xinwei replied, Then what does the princess think should be done? Perhaps before the wedding, Sister Yunu could stay at the duke's residence. That way, I would have company as well. On the surface, Yang Xinwei appeared to be in a dilemma, but inside, she was astonished that the princess would indeed take Yunu away and keep her under restraint, yet there was nothing that could be done about it. After some hesitation, she replied, I will follow your orders, princess. Princess Xianyi, fearing that Yang Xianyue might overthink it, added, don't worry, I will not mistreat you. The former residence of Princess Taiping was now rented out by Zhang Xiaochuan. At this moment, a completely black helicopter quietly landed on a vacant area of the property. Zhang Xiaochuan calmly observed everything, while Luo Xiaohu stood beside him, dumbfounded. Brother, this is the new model of helicopter. It's incredible. I only heard it when it was about to land. How is that even possible? That's a long story. Let me ask Uncle Imo to explain it to you. At this time, Yaoer was the first to descend from the helicopter, followed by 2 guards, and finally Mo Tianji. Luo Xiaohu hurriedly stepped forward to pay his respects to Mo Tianji. Zhang Xiaochuan went over and hugged Yaoer, who shyly squirmed, and pushed him away, making Zhang Xiaochuan laugh heartily. He decided to wait until later to engage in any improper behavior and turned to Mo Tianji, saying, I guess that you would come personally today. Uncle Mo Tianji appeared quite pleased. That's natural. This is the first official flight of the new model helicopter, Dark Knight, and I had to pilot it myself to ensure it wasn't damaged. Can you tell me about the performance of this new helicopter, Dark Knight? Mo Tianji then began to explain the features of the Dark Knight helicopter, which was entirely a new type. The improvements were primarily in 5 areas. Firstly, the power system was upgraded from a manual ignition to an electronic one, and the engine was changed from a diesel to a gasoline engine, providing stronger power and faster speed. The single rotor was replaced with a dual rotor system, and it also featured a silent takeoff and landing system. In simple terms, 6 small rotors were added on both sides, allowing for silent takeoff and landing while the main rotor turned slowly, minimizing noise. Secondly, an electric auxiliary system was added. With the support of the electric system, the latest wireless communication equipment was installed, enabling the helicopter to communicate with the ground while in the air. It could also perform remote positioning. Tonight, Zhang Xiaochuan and his team placed a signal transmitter on the ground, allowing for precise landing in pitch darkness. Additionally, it had radar detection capabilities to identify obstacles during night flights. Thirdly, the instrument functions were enhanced, allowing visibility of engine temperature, rotational speed, altitude, flight speed, and other operational statuses of the helicopter. Fourthly, the transport capacity was improved. Moreover, the appearance of the aircraft has changed. Its overall design is quite similar to that of a certain country's transport helicopter. The aircraft space has increased, allowing it to transport nearly 100 people at once, with a payload capacity of 25,000 pounds. Additionally, the range has significantly improved, with a maximum distance of 2,000 kilometers. This means that as long as there is resupply on the other end, a large portion of the territory can be conquered in a single day. When the introduction of the aircraft was completed, Zhang Xiaochuan fell into deep thought. For him, the most important function of this helicopter is still transportation. With rapid transport capabilities, industrial parks can be developed across the entire territory, enabling the extraction of various minerals and energy resources. However, there is still a huge bottleneck that cannot be overcome, which is the severe shortage of skilled personnel who master the new technology. This is not something that can be resolved overnight. It will require waiting for schools to be built, training young people through educational programs, and selecting talented individuals during various construction projects for further education. Seeing Zhang Xiaochuan frowning, the inventor assumed he was dissatisfied. Erlang, I was really excited when this helicopter was created. You seem unhappy. Is that the case? Zhang Xiaochuan, interrupted from his thoughts, replied awkwardly. Oh no, it's not that. I suddenly thought of something else. This is already quite impressive, but we need to keep this project confidential. The original single-rotor helicopter can also be upgraded. This upgrade is already in progress, and then suddenly lowering his voice, the inventor continued, the fighter jet will be ready soon. Zhang Xiaochuan was taken aback. So soon? Uncle Mo, you really care about aviation matters. Of course. I'm really looking forward to the speed being several times faster than the current helicopters. Just thinking about what it must feel like to fly at that speed gets me excited. Zhang Xiaochuan interrupted. All right, calm down. Have you brought everything? The inventor returned to his usual demeanor, responding steadily. Yes, I have brought a micro-signal transmitter, a radio telegraph, and a generator, all on the aircraft. I will arrange for people to install them overnight. After that, everyone went back to their tasks. Zhang Xiaochuan took Yao Yao back to the bedroom, eager to get closer. Yao Yao protested. Hey, don't be so reckless. Didn't you call me to report on the progress of important projects in the group? Zhang Xiaochuan, with a playful grin, replied, let us put that aside for now. I'm more interested in you than hearing about project updates. But if we do this, how will I have time to return to the estate with Uncle Mo later? Then don't go back. I've missed you so much these days. Let us stay here a few more days. Without waiting for Yao Yao to respond, he rushed forward eagerly. Chapter 187. The 8 Immortals toasting. Although the incident involving the drum and petition did not cause significant damage to the emperor's reputation due to Zhang Xiaochuan's subsequent flattery, it still became a hot topic in the capital. However, knocking the drum to petition is never a good thing, and with the deliberate guidance of certain individuals, public opinion gradually shifted towards another significant upcoming event, the grand wedding of Prince Li Zhao. The construction of the power plant has already begun. Zhang Xiaochuan has brought in a member from the village who has experience in power plant construction to assist. Everything is progressing smoothly at this early stage, and Zhang Xiaochuan only needs to visit the construction site occasionally. Therefore, He currently has some free time and is considering taking a stroll in the entertainment district, both to experience the top-tier nightlife and to see if he can recruit some talented individuals among the many students from other regions gathered there. As the sun sets and the lights come on, the entertainment district is bustling with activity. Entering from the north gate, there are 3 alleys: north, central, and south. The north alley, being the least upscale, primarily conducts more unsavory business. The central and south alleys feature high-end entertainers who are not only skilled in singing and dancing, but also excel in poetry and the arts, and they possess great beauty. Zhang Xiaochuan, whose home has become a harem, naturally would not visit the north alley. As he reaches the central alley, he hears the familiar melody of the most dazzling folk style. Initially surprised, he quickly realizes that this cannot be another traveler, but rather a song that has come from the region of Shu. Since he heard the tune, he decides to check out the establishment where it is being performed. Looking up, he sees the sign for Fengfei Building, and at that moment, the singing inside has ceased. A girl at the entrance, seeing Zhang Xiaochuan pause, quickly comes over to greet him, and he follows her into Fengfei Building. Upon entering the hall, he sees a man in white clothing, wearing a traditional hat, standing on the stage in the center, raising a cup and reciting poetry. It is none other than the renowned poet Li Bai, reciting his famous poem Bring in the Wine. Zhang Xiaochuan asks Luo Xiaohu to find a seat in the hall while he enjoys Li Bai's recitation, which is undoubtedly a form of artistic performance. Li Bai's unique and magnetic voice brings forth a sense of carefree ethereality that resonates deeply. After Li Bai finishes his recitation, Zhang Xiaochuan approaches to greet him. "Brother Tai Bai, long time no see. I didn't expect to run into you here." Li Bai, already somewhat tipsy, fails to recognize him at first due to Zhang Xiaochuan's new hairstyle and asks, somewhat confused, "Why do I feel you are so familiar?" Instead of answering directly, Zhang Xiaochuan counters with a question. "Brother Tai Bai, now that you have learned my method of entering the building, will there still be complications?" Li Bai suddenly awakens, exclaiming, "Zhang Xiandi, haha, that's great. I didn't expect you to come to the capital as well. But what happened to your hair? Did you perhaps get led astray by the Taoist priest?" Zhang Xiaochuan touches his slicked-back hairstyle. This hairstyle is a vow of determination. "As for why I came to the capital, it's a long story." At this moment, an elderly man nearby chimes in. "I know. He came to the capital to report to the sage and the chancellor." "Huh?" Li Bai's eyes widen. "What? The person causing such a stir in the city is you, Zhang Xiandi." Zhang Xiaochuan initially wants to refute this, but it seems there is some truth to it. The elderly man continues, "Absolutely no doubt about it. With that hairstyle, you won't find another like it in the entire Tang dynasty." Zhang Xiaochuan involuntarily straightened his back and raised his head higher, feeling proudly in his heart. This is the first wash and haircut of the Tang dynasty. If someone finds a second one, what am I even doing here? Li Bai seemed to understand the situation as well. He was not one to fuss over trivial details, so he pulled Zhang Xiaochuan over and said, "We'll talk about that later. Let me introduce you to someone. This is He Zhizhang, the Grand Scholar of the Jixin Academy." Upon hearing the name, Zhang Xiaochuan recognized him. "I've met He Laoji." Li Bai then pointed to a man next to He Zhizhang and introduced, "This is Li Shizhi, the left chancellor of the current dynasty." "Oh, another famous person. I've met Chancellor Li." Li Bai continued the introductions. "This is Su Jin, currently the left shushi of the crown prince. This is Li Jin, the eldest son of King Ning. This is Cui Zongji, the Duke of Qi, currently serving as a shiushi. And this is Jiao Sui, known for his love of wine despite being a commoner. And this is Zhang Su, famous for his wild and unrestrained cursive writing." Zhang Xiaochuan greeted each of them, mumbling to himself, "Why are they all famous? What a coincidence." Li Bai then added, "Though we 8 have different statuses, we share a common hobby. Our greatest love is what's in this cup." This statement suddenly enlightened Zhang Xiaochuan, and he exclaimed, "The 8 immortals of drinking." He Zhizhang laughed heartily. "I didn't expect the reputation of the 8 immortals of drinking has reached the Shu region. Even Zhang, the official, knows about it." This official referred to Zhang Xiaochuan's previous position, and he was surprised that He Zhizhang still remembered. Zhang Xiaochuan flattered, "It's well known." Li Bai raised his cup and said, "Let us toast." The other 7 responded in unison, and Zhang Xiaochuan had no choice but to pick up the drink offered by the singer and shout, "Cheers." The 8 immortals echoed, "Cheers." It seems the term cheers had been popularized by Li Bai. However, as soon as he took a sip, the sour and bitter taste shot straight to his head. This time, the wine still tasted terrible, and he wondered how they were all enjoying it so much. He quickly whispered a few words to Luo Xiaohu, who then turned and left the Fengfei Tower. After finishing the cup, everyone began to chat excitedly. With Zhang Xiaochuan's presence, the conversation inevitably turned to the incident of beating the drum for the imperial edict. Everyone expressed admiration for Zhang Xiaochuan's courage. He Zhizhang remarked, "Throughout history, those who have taken unconventional paths to become scholars are widely celebrated. Someone as bold as Zhang, without a doubt, has no precedent. If someone had told me to do it this way, I would have been too scared to move." Zhang Xiaochuan thought to himself, "I was scared too. But I wasn't reckless. If the emperor really wanted to execute me, it would have sparked a national crisis." But he said, "I was just a young calf not afraid of tigers." Looking back now, I can't help but feel a chill down my spine. Let's not talk about it anymore. I'm afraid I'll have nightmares tonight. Everyone found Zhang Xiaochuan's words amusing and burst into laughter. Li Bai interjected, "Zhang, you're in for a treat today? Today, Gongsun Dajiang will perform on stage. Upon hearing Dajiang, Zhang Xiaochuan thought, what kind of taste do you wine drinkers have? Why get so excited about a lady's dance? He could only ask in confusion, is there something special about this? Li Bai exclaimed, oh, could it be that you, Zhang, have never heard of Gongsun Dajiang's fame? Is Gongsun Dajiang really that famous? Chapter 188, Sword Dance of Gongsun Li. When Zhang Xiaochuan asked if Gongsun Dainyu was very famous, everyone looked at him with strange expressions. A mix of disbelief and a hint of sympathy. Zhang Xiaochuan was about to say, should I know? When a crisp female voice came from behind. How dare I accept such praise from the 8 immortals of the drinking society? I am just an ordinary dancer. Zhang Xiaochuan turned to look in the direction of the voice. The speaker was a woman in her 30s, dressed in a traditional outfit, yet exuding a sense of the martial world, reminiscent of female heroes from TV dramas of the 80s and 90s. Zhang Xiaochuan boldly sized her up, but to his surprise, she did not shy away at all and met his gaze directly. The woman bowed slightly and said, I am Gongsun, pleased to meet you, young sir. At that moment of eye contact, Zhang Xiaochuan felt somewhat dazed. Beautiful, chic, a stunning and stylish woman, an absolute goddess for the homebody crowd. He felt a dryness in his throat and involuntarily swallowed. Everyone noticed Zhang Xiaochuan's awkwardness, and he himself realized it, quickly returning the greeting. Lady Gongsun, you honor me. Li Bai interjected, you can't call her Lady Gongsun. You should call her Gongsun Dainyu. Although Zhang Xiaochuan had already guessed that this person was indeed Gongsun Dainyu, he still found it hard to believe after Li Bai said it. May I ask, such a young and beautiful lady, why is she called Dainyu? The others looked at Zhang Xiaochuan with even stranger expressions, as if to say, where did this country bumpkin come from? Fortunately, Li Bai had interacted with Zhang Xiaochuan more often and seemed to understand his meaning. He explained, Gongsun Dainyu does not have a personal name because her surname is Gongsun, and she is the eldest at home. Strictly speaking, she should be called Gongsun Danyuzi. However, since Gongsun Dainyu is unmatched in her dance skills, people dropped the Z to show their admiration, and Gongsun Dainyu became her name. Zhang Xiaochuan then realized, I see. I'm truly sorry, it's my ignorance. Just then, another woman appeared beside Gongsun Dainyu, teasingly saying, young sir, you are indeed a bit ignorant. Why not invite Gongsun Dainyu for a drink after her dance, and you can learn more? Zhang Xiaochuan looked at the speaker with wide eyes. Sister Hua? Only halfway through, he realized this was not Hua Qingwu, but someone who resembled her. To his surprise, the woman laughed and said, oh, I didn't expect you to recognize Sister Hua. It's truly an honor. However, Li Bai, lacking in romantic sensibility, chimed in, this Sister Hua is not that Sister Hua. Zhang Xiaochuan looked at Li Bai in confusion, and then heard Li Bai continue. This Sister Hua is the sister of that Sister Hua, named Hua Meng, and she is the false mother of Feng Fei Lu. Although Li Bai's explanation was a bit convoluted, Zhang Xiaochuan understood, and so did Hua Meng. She then asked, and this young sir is? Li Bai replied, this is the creator of the most dazzling national style, the little celestial master from Shuzhou, Zhang Xiaochuan. Hua Meng's face lit up with admiration as she said, greetings, little celestial master. Ever since my sister shared your lyrics and music, I have been very fond of them, and I have longed to meet the person who created such remarkable pieces. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaochuan felt a bit embarrassed and humbly replied, I dare not claim to be a little master, nor do I dare to discuss creation. You can just call me by my name or little gentleman. Hua Meng said, that works too, but the show is about to start, so little gentleman, please don't leave. I will come back later to offer a toast. After saying this, she gave a graceful bow and led Gongsun Dajiang onto the stage. The crowd stopped chatting and focused their attention on the stage in the center of the hall. Unbeknownst to them, the hall was already packed with people, but fortunately, Zhang Xiaochuan and the others were in an open box that was level with the stage, so their view was not obstructed. Hua Meng took the stage and spoke a few words, essentially saying that it was rare to have Gongsun Dajiang perform, and that they should all come often in the future. After that, she went straight into the program, fearing that if she delayed for even a second, rotten eggs would fly onto the stage. At that moment, the music began, and Gongsun Dajiang danced gracefully to the music, her movements agile like a swimming dragon, with brilliant sword flowers dazzling in the air. As she leaped and twirled, it felt as if the stage was filled with the glimmer of blades, creating a visual effect that was breathtaking. The beautiful rhythm seemed to conceal hidden danger, stirring everyone's emotions. Zhang Xiaochuan was also captivated, feeling as if a sword had not yet rested before another had risen, with shadows of swords all around him. The image of Gongsun Dajiang on stage overlapped with a game character from a popular game he played in his later life. He suddenly recalled that this character was based on Gongsun Dajiang, which excited him greatly. After the dance ended, there was a moment of silence that lasted for over 10 seconds before everyone realized the sword dance was over. Then, a loud exclamation broke the silence as Zhang Xiaochuan shouted, wow, Gongsun Li. Since the entire hall was silent at that moment, his words were clearly heard by everyone. Although they didn't know what he was shouting about, they were awakened by his voice, followed by a round of applause, of course, for Gongsun Dajiang, with everyone calling for her to dance again. At this time, Hua Meng came up to the stage, holding Gongsun Dajiang's hand and leading her to the front, saying, dear guests, look at how exhausted Gongsun Dajiang is. Only then did everyone notice that Gongsun Dajiang was drenched in sweat, indicating that this magnificent sword dance was indeed an extreme performance, and it was unrealistic to expect her to dance 2 pieces in a row. Everyone immediately stopped insisting. However, Hua Meng suddenly changed the topic, saying, "What did little gentleman Zhang say earlier? I didn't hear it clearly. Could you please say it again?" I just said that Gongsun Dajiang is actually Gongsun Li." Gongsun Dajiang quickly took over the conversation and asked, "Why do you say that, little gentleman Zhang?" Zhang Xiaochuan scratched his head, unsure how to explain, and could only make up a story. "When I saw Gongsun Dajiang dance, this name flashed through my mind. And I felt that Gongsun Dajiang should be called Gongsun Li, so I shouted it out." Gongsun Dajiang pondered the name Gongsun Li for a moment, then bowed to Zhang Xiaochuan, saying, "Thank you, little gentleman Zhang, for the name. From now on, I shall be called Gongsun Li." Zhang Xiaochuan waved his hand and smiled wryly. "It's fate. As long as the lady likes it, that is good." The purpose of Hua Menggu has not yet been achieved. At the right moment, she interjected, "Zhang Xiaoling Jun is truly talented. The character Li is remarkably clever. And this name seems to have been born for Li Nyangzi." Then, she raised her voice even higher and said, "You may not know, but the new songs recently launched in this venue are all composed by Zhang Xiaoling Jun." As soon as Hua Menggu finished speaking, the audience began to murmur, most of them in disbelief. Zhang Xiaochuan felt that this woman was elevating him too high, as if there was a plot. Sure enough, he heard Hua Menggu continue, "I know everyone doesn't believe it. I find it hard to believe myself. Therefore, since Zhang Xiaoling Jun is here today at Fengfei Lu, why not invite him to perform a song for us?" Upon hearing this, Zhang Xiaochuan thought, "Wow, they are waiting for me." Chapter 189. The dandy of the capital city with Hua Menggu on stage setting the tone, everyone's emotions were lifted. If Zhang Xiaochuan didn't prove that those songs were his, he probably wouldn't be able to leave. But since they were here to have fun, he thought of it as a karaoke session, so he decided not to be pretentious. He stepped onto the stage, stood beside Hua Menggu, wrapped an arm around her waist, and thought to himself, "How dare you set me up? I'll collect some interest first." With his other hand, he waved to the audience and said, "Thank you all for your warm invitation. Today, I feel deeply moved by Li Nyangzi's dance, so I'll spontaneously create a song." The audience didn't believe him at all, thinking, "You haven't even matured yet and dare to create a song on the spot?" However, Hua Menggu was extremely excited because she knew those songs were indeed composed by Zhang Xiaochuan, and didn't he expect any new songs. Zhang Xiaochuan noticed the doubts from the audience, but didn't need to explain anything. He would soon make them eat their words. As Zhang Xiaochuan began to get into character, Hua Menggu wisely stepped off the stage, and the crowd gradually quieted down, waiting for Zhang Xiaochuan to make a fool of himself. Zhang Xiaochuan was searching through his song library, wondering which song to sing. Wasn't Gongsun Li like a martial arts character from the 80s and 90s? This song would be perfect. After deciding, he announced, "The next song, Sword and Saber Like a Dream, is dedicated to everyone. Thank you." Then, Zhang Xiaochuan began to sing, "My sword, where to go? Love and hate, hard to choose. My knife, slicing through the sky, right and wrong, I understand not. I'm drunk, in a haze, kindness and resentment. Are they real or empty? I awaken, a spring dream. Life and death, all turns to nothing, coming and going in a rush, wishing we could meet again. Love and hate come and go in a rush, everything follows the wind. Laughing wildly, sighing deeply, rejoicing, lamenting, who shares life and death with me." Zhang Xiaochuan had loved this song during his school days, and singing it again now made him feel a bit vulnerable. After finishing the first round, he felt unsatisfied. Seeing the audience in silence, he decided to sing it again. To his surprise, just as he began the second round, he heard the sound of an instrument accompanying him. It was Hua Menggu playing the piano. He couldn't help but marvel, what an absolute genius. With the piano accompaniment, Zhang Xiaochuan sang even more passionately, and his voice became infectious. As he sang, it turned into a group karaoke session, and the entire venue was filled with excitement. After singing 3 rounds, Zhang Xiaochuan was exhausted and stepped off the stage, but the applause for him continued for a long time until Hua Menggu arranged for another performance. Zhang Xiaochuan returned to the private room where Li Bai and the others were, and the group quickly praised him and raised their glasses in a toast. At this moment, Hua Meng and Gongsun Li also came over to toast. After the toast, the two sat beside Zhang Xiaochuan, one on the left and one on the right, making others envious. Just as everyone was enjoying drinks and chatting happily, an unpleasant voice interrupted the atmosphere. "Are you not treating your guests well, only accompanying this group? That seems a bit unfair, doesn't it?" Hua Meng, who was quite adept at handling such situations, immediately recognized the voice and put on a professional fake smile, saying, "Oh, is that you, Wang Erling? I'll go have a drink with you, and bring a nice bottle of wine as an apology." Zhang Xiaochuan, unaware of the situation, asked Gongsun Li for clarification. He then learned that the unpleasant voice belonged to Wang Han, the younger brother of Wang Tsang, a high-ranking official in the Ministry of Revenue. Currently, there was no minister in the ministry, and although Wang Tsang held the title of a lower official, he was effectively exercising the powers of the minister. So his brother Wang Han was quite arrogant. Wang Han then pushed Hua Meng aside, causing her to lose her balance and nearly fall onto Zhang Xiaochuan's table. He quickly stood up to catch her. Unexpectedly, Wang Han continued to curse, "You shameless old madam, get away from me. We want Gongsun Danyang to pour drinks." The term old madam has no specific origin, but carries a derogatory connotation, suggesting a leader among courtesans. Generally, it's uncommon to directly insult a brothel owner in such a manner, although after certain historical periods, the term became mainstream. Usually, they would be addressed as mother or aunt. Therefore, Wang Han's insult was quite direct and offensive. But Hua Meng dared not show her displeasure and continued to greet him with a smile, explaining, Wang Erlang, please don't take offense. Gong Sun Li is here to perform a dance, not one of our courtesans. It's truly what? I see your establishment is at its end. What does a courtesan have to be proud of? Come here immediately, or I'll shut down your establishment. Wang Han shouted, moving closer to grab Gong Sun Li. Hua Meng promptly stepped in front of Gong Sun Li, straightening her back and saying, Wang Erlang, I acknowledge that your family holds significant power in the capital. But my establishment is not to be easily manipulated. There are countless dignitaries in this city, and I advise you not to bring trouble to your family. However, Wang Han was not swayed by her words. He was just a hot-headed youth. At that moment, another voice chimed in. What does it matter how many dignitaries there are? I wonder if my esteemed self can't handle it? Hua Meng recognized this voice and her heart sank. It belonged to Li Xiu, the eldest son of the Chancellor Li Linfu. Li Linfu was of royal descent and had served as Chancellor for several years, wielding immense power in the capital. Gong Sun Li understood that as a courtesan, even with her fame in Chang'an, she was still of low status and had to bow to these noble families. She whispered to Zhang Xiaochuan to clarify the identities of the two young masters before preparing to stand up and attend to Li Xiu and Wang Han. Unexpectedly, Zhang Xiaochuan held her down and gave her a reassuring look. In fact, among the 8 immortals of drinking, there were those capable of handling such situations, like the left Prime Minister Li Shizhi and the Prince of Ruyang Li Jing. However, as long as things didn't escalate, they thought it was no big deal and merely entertained themselves. But Zhang Xiaochuan couldn't stand it. Having lived again, armed with knowledge and technology beyond this era, his goal was to no longer compromise, but to achieve clarity of thought. So, Zhang Xiaochuan took the lead. Oh, as the son of a prime minister. Is this all you've got? In this world, it's all about wine, women, wealth, and power. I wonder which of these you think you have to make such a fuss. Li Xiu saw someone daring to speak up and thought these young lords were easily provoked. If you said they couldn't do something, they would insist they could. Li Xiu waved to someone behind him, and immediately, someone walked over with a jug of wine. Li Xiu smugly said, You provincial bumpkin dare to talk to me about wine, women, wealth, and power? Look at this. While speaking, he pointed at the jug of wine and continued without waiting for Zhang Xiaochuan to respond. This is tribute wine, the finest gin Nan Xiaochuan awarded by the sage. It's not something you can drink just because you have money. Then, Li Xiu uncovered the jug and let the 8 immortals of drinking smell it. They were all connoisseurs of good wine, and their faces lit up with desire. He Zhizhong suddenly praised, good wine. After Li Xiu finished showing off his wine, he said, How about my wine? You provincial bumpkin probably have never tasted such good wine in your life. Wang Chan chimed in mockingly, Taste? You probably haven't even smelled anything like this before. You should thank Li Delang for his generosity, letting someone of your low status have a whiff of such a fine wine. After saying that, he and Li Xiu burst into laughter, their mockery and sarcasm reaching extremes. Zhang Xiaochuan chuckled inwardly. Although the wine was good, too bad it ran into him today. Just then, Luo Xiaohu returned, and Zhang Xiaochuan decided to show off as well, letting these provincial bumpkins see the world. Have you laughed enough? If you have, come and see my wine, Zhang Xiaochuan said, waving at Luo Xiaohu. Luo Xiaohu, along with another person, brought over a large wooden box and quickly opened it. Zhang Xiaochuan reached in and took out a bottle of wine. Regardless of the wine, the bottle itself exuded elegance, featuring a classic waterdrop-shaped glass bottle in a gradient blue color. When slightly shaken, the bubbles danced within, looking incredibly high-end. Zhang Xiaochuan contemptuously said to Li Xiu, How about my wine? Li Xiu, not willing to back down, retorted, How? If you don't open it, who would know? Relying on a pretty bottle to scare people, is that all? Zhang Xiaochuan smiled slightly, You have a point. I'll open it now. As soon as he opened it, a rich fragrance spread out, rivaling the wine brought by Li Xiu. Zhang Xiaochuan raised the wine and said, Come, everyone, drink up your cups, and I'll refill them for you to taste. Li, come help pour. Saying this, he took another bottle from the box and handed it to Gong Sun Li, pouring wine for everyone while saying, Feel free to taste. I'm not like someone who only lets you smell. Li Xiu's face was stinging from the slap, but he still stubbornly said, Fill my glass too. I want to see what kind of nonsense you're up to. It must just smell good. Wang Can echoed, Exactly. Fill my glass too. Let me expose you. Just then, Zhang Xiaochuan shouted, Everyone, don't rush to drink yet. Let me explain. This wine has a high alcohol content. Simply put, it's quite strong and spicy, so take small sips and savor it. As soon as Zhang Xiaochuan finished speaking, Wang Can remarked, What a miser, small sips. That's not me, I drink in big gulps. After saying that, he tilted his head and downed his glass in one go. Immediately feeling a burning sensation rush to his head, then he started coughing, tears streaming down his face turning red, and he pointed at Zhang Xiaochuan while gesturing. Zhang Xiaochuan laughed heartily. You fool, serves you right, not listening to the advice of the wise and suffering the consequences. What is this? What kind of wine is this? It's clearly poison. You're trying to harm us. Wang Can exclaimed. A wild boar can't handle fine food. If you don't understand, just shut your mouth. I'll show everyone how to drink. Saying this, Zhang Xiaochuan took a small sip first, savored it slightly, then gulped down the rest of the wine, relishing the aftertaste. Having learned from Wang Can's earlier experience, everyone followed Zhang Xiaochuan's example and took small sips. Soon the sounds of tasting filled the air. Good wine. Absolutely the best. He Zhizhong was the first to exclaim. The others quickly agreed it was good wine, while Li Xiu's face was flushed, unsure whether it was from embarrassment or the spiciness of the wine. Zhang Xiaochuan looked at Li Xiu with a teasing expression and said, "So, is my wine still considered excellent?" Li Xiu didn't respond, but as the 8 immortals of drinking enjoyed such good wine, he couldn't help but speak up. Li Bai said, "This wine is truly exceptional. It enters spicy but has a rich flavor, smooth and long-lasting in the throat, with a refreshing and sweet aftertaste. The aroma lingers in the mouth for a long time. It's definitely the best wine I've ever had in my life." Zhang Xiaochuan felt secretly pleased, knowing that this high-proof wine was far superior to those low-proof ones. However, Li Bai is indeed remarkable. His description of the wine was so vivid that it made one want to drink another cup. Li Shizhi said, "What Zhang said is right. I can't help but want another cup as well. Come on, refill my glass." "Sure, there's plenty of wine today. Please help pour for me. I'll deal with these two first." Zhang Xiaochuan said, looking at Li Xiu and Wang Can. "You two. It's clear who's superior. Are you still unwilling to admit defeat and leave?" Wang Can stubbornly retorted, "Who knows what kind of wine this is? So spicy it might kill someone. Someone like you drinking it could indeed be fatal." "Li darling, what do you have to say?" Li Xiu, knowing the situation was not in his favor, still wanted clarity. So he asked, "Who exactly are you?" "I am from Shu Prefecture. You can also call me a wealthy man." "Wealthy man? What does that mean?" "To the extreme. It's divine, extreme wealth, divine wealth, understand? Even half a jug of wine dares to show off." Although Li Xiu is a spoiled rich kid, he inherits the cleverness and cunning of his ancestor. He quickly seized on a flaw in Zhang Xiaochuan's words. A high hat was placed upon him. How daring! To look down on the wine bestowed by the sage. Zhang Xiaochuan's face darkened. "What are you? If you can't win, you resort to tricks. When did I ever look down on imperial wine?" Li Xiu, with a cunning grin, replied, "You didn't? Then dare you say your wine is better than mine? I now declare your wine inferior to mine, just trash. Do you have anything to say about that?" This was a question he could not win. It all depended on how Zhang Xiaochuan would respond. Saying that his wine was better would mean belittling the emperor, while saying it was worse would mean losing to Li Xiu, leaving him with no reason to stop Li Xiu from taking Gongsun Li away. Just as Zhang Xiaochuan considered whether to draw a weapon to deal with this scheming person, Prince of Riyang, Li Jin, spoke up. "Li Xiu, today is about wine. Let us not bring other matters into it. In my view, indeed, Zhang Xiaochuan's wine is superior. If you disagree, you may take it to the emperor for judgment." Prince Li Jin, like his father, did not enjoy disputes, but being straightforward, he could not stand to see such good wine being insulted as trash. So he couldn't help but step in to uphold justice. Both father and son held significant weight in the emperor's eyes, as he valued both power and emotional ties, which was inherently contradictory. The closer someone was to the emperor, the more likely they were to seize power. However, Li Jin and his father fit perfectly into the emperor's pain point. They harbored no ambitions and were family. Therefore, if Li Jin brought up the wine matter in front of the emperor would surely favor him, and Li Xiu would be utterly defeated. Having reached this point, Li Xiu was quite bold. "Fine, I admit defeat in the wine contest. But this isn't over. I still want to compete with you in wealth. Look at this." He pulled something out from his pocket and waved it in front of Zhang Xiaochuan, prompting an exclamation from him. "Oh no." Li Xiu laughed heartily upon seeing Zhang Xiaochuan's reaction. "Have you never seen such a thing? You must be shocked. I bet you don't even know what it is." Zhang Xiaochuan was secretly overjoyed. This was a solid win for him. No, he had to stay composed and not let this foolish brat see through him. "What is this? You're just a country bumpkin." Li Xiu was about to show off when Zhang Xiaochuan interrupted him, nearly causing him internal injury. Zhang Xiaochuan continued. "Since this is a bet, why don't we spice things up a bit? Otherwise, it would be too boring." Li Xiu laughed inwardly. Daring to compete with him in wealth and wanting to add stakes was clearly asking for trouble, so he had to agree. "All right, how do you want to bet?" Zhang Xiaochuan saw Li Xiu taking the bait and said, "I'm rather simple-minded. I like yellow and white objects. Let's bet 10,000 guan. How about that? 10,000 guan. Do you even have that much? Just 10,000 guan. The wine I just brought out alone can be sold for over 10,000 guan. So, are you daring enough to take the bet?" Li Xiu couldn't hold back either. Although it pained him to put out 10,000 coins, he didn't believe he would lose. So he replied, "All right, I accept your bet. But I want to raise the stakes. The loser has to crawl under the winner's legs. Are you up for it?" "Of course, why not? If you're willing to risk it all, I'm willing to bury it," he said with a snort. "Let us quickly determine the winner by seeing who has more money on them." Zhang Xiaochuan looked at Li Xiu with interest, wondering what this guy was up to, and asked, "Does the money have to be copper coins?" "Not just copper coins. Gold and silver are fine too. Or any other form of currency that can be spent directly," Li Xiu replied. Zhang Xiaochuan grinned mischievously. "No problem, we can start. Do you want to go first or should I?" Li Xiu said, "I know I should go first to show what I have. You'll probably have to admit defeat right away. Since you let me decide, I choose to go first." Zhang Xiaochuan interrupted him playfully, and Li Xiu retorted with an even more playful expression, "I choose to show mine first. With a person like you, there's no need to show off at all. Ha! TCH, please, start your performance." Li Xiu displayed what he had previously taken out in front of everyone again. It was a beautifully printed piece of paper, about the length of a stack of 4 fingers and wide enough to notice, with the Arabic numeral 1000 and the Chinese character for 1 printed on it. It was clearly the voucher issued by Zhang Xiaochuan some time ago. Li Xiu introduced it energetically while provocatively taunting Zhang Xiaochuan. How about that, you rustic poor guy? You probably haven't even seen one of these before. This is called a voucher, and it can be used as an equivalent amount of copper coins according to its face value. For instance, this thin piece of paper can be used as 1 coin. Zhang Xiaochuan put on a face of disbelief. Really? This thin piece of paper is worth 1 coin. Let me see it. He reached out to grab it. But Li Xiu immediately protected it. What are you looking at? This is 1 coin. If you damage it, it won't be usable anymore. Zhang Xiaochuan feigned disappointment. You won't let me see it? So stingy. You're not trying to trick me, are you? Li Xiu was momentarily speechless. Is there anyone here who recognizes this item? Surely. With your large business, you wouldn't be unfamiliar with it? Hua Meng spoke up. Of course, I recognize this item. She then turned to Zhang Xiaochuan. This can indeed be used as 1 coin, and it's quite sought after in the capital these days. Some people are even buying them privately. 1 coin can sell for 1,050 cash. Li Xiu stood tall, clearly satisfied with Hua Meng's explanation. So, now you have no doubts about the value of my voucher, right? Zhang Xiaochuan quickly replied. None at all. Please continue. Li Xiu pulled out a stack from his pocket, shook it in his hand, and then fanned it out before saying, Today, I brought over 350 of these vouchers and some smaller denominations. To make it simple, let us say I have a total of 360 coins. After finishing, he looked at Zhang Xiaochuan with a playful expression, seemingly waiting for him to admit defeat. However, when he saw Zhang Xiaochuan remain silent for a while, the atmosphere became a bit awkward. Li Xiu then impatiently said, People should know their place. Why not admit defeat quickly? Zhang Xiaochuan looked puzzled and asked, Why should I admit defeat? He snorted, not admitting defeat? Do you think you can carry over 300 coins? Or does your attendant have them? Unexpectedly, upon hearing Li Xiu's words, Zhang Xiaochuan clapped his hands and said, What a coincidence. I also have vouchers. While speaking, he pulled out 5 stacks of vouchers from his belongings. What? You also have vouchers? Then just now, Li Xiu recalled Zhang Xiaochuan's earlier expression of never having seen vouchers and felt embarrassed, his face turning red. You pretended not to know and dared to toy with me. Do you think I'm easy to bully? Stop your useless rage. I never said I didn't have any. Now I have 5 stacks, with 100 in each. How will you respond? Li Xiu still couldn't believe it. Just saying you have them doesn't mean you really do. I need to check if your vouchers are real. Go ahead, check. Li Xiu took a stack of vouchers Zhang Xiaochuan handed over, rubbed them in his hands, and flipped through them. After a moment, he couldn't help but breathe heavily. They were real, and brand new, unopened vouchers. Zhang Xiaochuan's remaining stacks were obviously real as well. Li Xiu, slightly trembling, asked, Where did you get so many vouchers? Why does it matter to you where they came from? I now have 500 coins, so it seems I've won. Thank you for the 10,000 coins. I admit I underestimated you, but I still have money I haven't taken out. Saying this, he waved his hand, and an attendant immediately presented a package. Li Xiu opened it and pulled out several gold ingots. I still have 5 ingots of gold and 3 ingots of silver, worth about 400 coins. Adding to my previous vouchers, I now have 760 coins. I've won. Zhang Xiaochuan suddenly realized, oh, so you haven't taken everything out yet. Look at this, what a coincidence, I haven't finished either. After saying that, he gestured to Luo Xiaohu, who promptly pulled out 5 stacks of vouchers from his pocket. Seeing this, Li Xiu felt as if a heavy stone was pressing down on his heart, feeling extremely stifled. Zhang Xiaochuan looked at Li Xiu with amusement. I now have 1,000 coins. How do you plan to respond? What kind of person are you to have so many vouchers? Zhang Xiaochuan looked at Li Xiu as if he were a fool. Didn't I just tell you? I'm a wealthy tycoon, one who spends lavishly. If you have money, bring it out quickly. If not, admit defeat. I still have to rush to drink with my lady. Chapter 192. Truly for my family's seal. Li Xiu found himself in a dilemma. Initially, seeing Zhang Xiaochuan and his attendant looking empty-handed, he felt confident to bet. But who would have thought he'd run into a tough opponent? They had vouchers, and more than he did. However, admitting defeat now would be incredibly embarrassing. Yet not admitting defeat seemed to leave him with no other option. Moreover, trying to cheat would likely not work either. This guy in front of him was clearly not an ordinary person, being able to possess so many vouchers. Although Wang Han was fierce, he could see that Li Xiu was running out of money and was about to lose, so he assisted. Li Dalan, have you forgotten? There are still over 300 coins with me. As he spoke, Li Xiu, along with his followers, took out all the money and goods on him. He was quick-witted and immediately said, Yes, how could I forget? Straightening his back, he arrogantly told Zhang Xiaochuan, I now have 1,100 guan. You lost. So crawl through my legs right now. Hua Meng, standing beside Zhang Xiaochuan, anxiously tugged at his arm, wanting to slip something to him. However, Li Xiu noticed it clearly. What are you doing, you? You need to understand which side you're on. Zhang Xiaochuan patted Hua Meng's hand, gave her a reassuring glance, and then smiled at Li Xiu. Young people are so impatient. Why the rush? Look at my memory, I still have several stacks hidden here. Saying this, he pulled out 5 more stacks of vouchers. Li Xiu felt like he was about to die and shouted hoarsely, How many vouchers do you have? How can you have so many? Are they printed by your family? Zhang Xiaochuan gave Li Xiu a thumbs up. Congratulations, you guessed it right. They really are printed by my family. But Li Xiu didn't believe it at all. Stop talking nonsense. Who are you really? Are you brave enough to reveal your true identity? Zhang Xiaochuan murmured. Short plays don't deceive me. No one believes the truth. Don't change the subject. If you don't tell me, I can find out who you are later. It just takes some effort. Don't be so agitated. I never said I wouldn't tell you. Didn't you lose 10,000 guan and need to send it to my residence? Stop with the back and forth. Just be straightforward. Why act so coy? Li Xiao knew he had lost this round and thought it better to admit it and come up with another plan. Suddenly, a light bulb went off in his head, and he came up with a new idea. Fine, I admit defeat in terms of financial strength. But this matter can't just end here. I still want to compete in martial strength. The person speaking was Li Shizhi, who continued, young people are full of vigor, and a little competition is harmless. However, your relentless behavior is a bit excessive and resembles a rogue. You should fulfill the betting agreement and leave us to enjoy our drinks. Li Jin also chimed in. What Minister Li said is absolutely right. It's rare to have such exquisite wine in front of us, and your disturbance is truly testing our patience. Li Xiao felt despair in his heart. These two were people who could speak in front of the emperor. If this continued, he wouldn't end up well. The key was that these two had previously ignored his bullying in such places, but today, for some reason, they decided to intervene. It seemed he could only admit defeat. Li Xiao said in a voice only he could hear, I lost. After saying that, he turned to leave but was pulled back by Zhang Xiaochuan. What are you saying? I didn't hear clearly. You think you can just leave like this? Li Xiao gritted his teeth and said, I said I lost. Are you satisfied now? Can I leave? Zhang Xiaochuan looked at him as if he were a fool. Satisfied? Since you admit defeat, hurry up and pay up. Crawl through my legs. Li Xiao's face turned red. I can't take the money out right now. Zhang Xiaochuan said cheerfully, I live in Pinkangfang, so delivering it to my residence is fine. However, he paused and took out a piece of paper. I'm quite meticulous in my dealings, so this is an IOU. Please sign it. Li Xiao took it and signed it angrily, while Zhang Xiaochuan held it up and blew on it, which made Li Xiao want to kill him. Can I leave now? Have you lost your memory? There's still a promise to fulfill. Li Xiao had not spoken yet when Wang Chan jumped out. Do you really want your brother to suffer this humiliation? You must be tired of living. At that moment, a burly man beside Wang Chan chimed in. You seem like a newcomer. I advise you to back off while you still can, otherwise you won't get through tonight. Zhang Xiaochuan calmly asked. May I ask who you are? I am Xingyan, the man replied. Zhang Xiaochuan thought. So it's Xingyan. I knew something was missing with Wang Chan here. It turns out it was this guy. Wang Chan and Xing Yan were a notorious duo in history, known for their rebellion. But instead of taking over a city or the palace like others, they actually occupied a vegetable market. Their reasoning was quite sound. They believed that a bustling market would attract the attention of high-ranking officials who would come to watch, and they could then capture them and force the emperor to abdicate. Their approach was so unique it could be considered a historical first, but the outcome was predictable. They were subdued before they even left the market. Facing Xing Yan's declaration, Zhang Xiaochuan simply said, Then I wonder how you think you can stop me tonight, just because of you, this ugly brute? Xing Yan, who was quite average-looking but had a good opinion of himself, couldn't stand being called ugly. Furious, he charged at Zhang Xiaochuan. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Hua Mange, who was closer to Zhang Xiaochuan, shut her eyes in fear but didn't hear any sound of Zhang Xiaochuan being struck down. When she opened her eyes, she saw Luo Xiaohu casually grabbing Xing Yan's fist, and the two stood there silently. Sweat beads dripped down Xing Yan's forehead, and he was shocked. He didn't expect this seemingly plain middle-aged man to be so strong. He couldn't pull his hand back even with all his might. As if the other party hadn't even exerted force, Zhang Xiaochuan waved his hand, and Luo Xiaohu released Xing Yan. Zhang Xiaochuan pointed to his own waist, and said to Li Xiao, come on. Li Xiao's face turned pale. He couldn't understand where this madman came from, completely disregarding his identity and trying to offend him to the extreme. Just when Li Xiao was at a loss, a voice came through, sounding like music to his ears. Young Master Zhang, could you do me a favor? Can we negotiate this bet? Chapter 193. Brother Gao, I have my eyes on you. Zhang Xiaochuan saw that it was Li Jin coming to plead for him. Although he wasn't afraid to confront Li Linfu, there was no need to do so right now. It would be better to take a step back. Since the Prince of Ruyang was interceding, it wouldn't hurt to negotiate. How about making it a cash deal? Li Xiao immediately became assertive. All right, name your price. Zhang Xiaochuan pointed a straight finger. How about 10,000? Are you crazy? That's an outrageous demand. Do you really think I would agree to that? Do I look like a fool to you? Zhang Xiaochuan mocked. You don't look like a fool, but more like a beggar. Is the face of the son of a prime minister not worth 10,000? How about this? I'll return your previous IOU, and you crawl under my legs twice. It must be said that Zhang Xiaochuan was quite ruthless, hitting Li Xiao hard and then stepping on him, even spitting on him afterward. Li Xiao's words almost burst out between his teeth. Just 10,000. Let us write a contract. Watching Li Xiao and the others leave, Li Shizhi said, Zhang, though you made 20,000 in an instant, offending a high official is truly unwise. Zhang Xiaochuan chuckled. Thank you for your concern. But life is meant to be lived freely. Being overly cautious isn't something the 8 immortals of the wine should say. Let us continue drinking. I still have a whole box here, and we can't leave until it's finished. Li Shizhi laughed heartily. I was being overly cautious. I'll drink 3 cups as punishment. Fill them up. He Zhizhong bluntly pointed out. That's a good plan of yours. I'll join you for 3 cups. Li Bai immediately chimed in. I'll join for 3 cups too. Ha! Let us all drink 3 cups together. Fill them up. Fill them up. After they shared 3 cups, they entered a brawl segment, either drinking in pairs or raising their cups together, occasionally composing poems and verses. Zhang Xiaochuan noticed something was off with Li Bai and asked, Brother Tai Bai, I see you glancing toward the entrance. Is there someone important coming? Haha, yes. Someone is coming. Li Bai laughed and left his seat, soon bringing someone over. The man was lean and tall, with a handsome, well-defined face. Li Bai brought him to the center and introduced. This is my good friend, Gao Shi, Gao 13. Then Li Bai introduced the seated guests one by one. And when it came to Zhang Xiaochuan, he quickly stood up and bowed to Gao Shi, which made Gao Shi feel awkward, and he hurriedly returned the gesture, nearly kneeling. Gao Shi was well known in the history of the prosperous dynasty, but he had spent the first half of his life in poverty, only reaching his peak in the last 10 years of his life. Now, he was undoubtedly a hidden gem. The reason Zhang Xiaochuan treated him with such respect was that Gao Shi was a historical figure. And Zhang Xiaochuan's original goal was to find talented individuals to assist him, and Gao Shi was a great fit. Due to Zhang Xiaochuan's courtesy, Gao Shi also had a good impression of him, and coincidentally, Gao Shi, Li Bai, and Zhang Xiaochuan were seated quite close to each other. Li Bai continued the introduction. Zhang Xiandi is the one who created the most dazzling ethnic music, surprising to see him so young, right? Zhang Xiaochuan quickly declined. This song was just a matter of chance. It can't be considered a creation. Inside, he felt troubled. You all keep saying I'm a creator, but I'm too shy to accept it. Gao Shi expressed his surprise. I didn't expect Zhang Xiandi to be so impressive, truly a hero among the youth. You flatter me. Let us not talk about this anymore. Let us drink. After the three of them took a drink, Li Bai said, I was just about to ask. This wine is unlike anything I've had before. Could it be a new brew of yours? Li Bai's question was also on the minds of the others present, all of whom were wine enthusiasts eager for the answer. They leaned in, waiting for Zhang Xiaochuan's response. Zhang Xiaochuan nodded and replied, indeed. This is a new wine that I've brewed in collaboration with the Wei family from Mianzhu. If we categorize new wine into ordinary and premium, this one would fall into the premium category. However, premium wine is further divided into 3 grades, upper, middle, and lower. This wine can only be considered a lower grade premium. He Zhizhang exclaimed in surprise, what? This is only lower grade. Then, what do the middle and upper grades taste like? I wonder if I'll have the chance to try them in my lifetime. Don't worry, He Lao, if all goes well, you should get to taste them soon. But have you really never tried this wine? Li Bai countered. What do you mean, Zhang Xiandi? Zhang Xiaochuan did not answer Li Bai, but instead picked up a bottle of wine and said, look, there are words on this bottle. This is the name of the wine. Shu Sword, Jian Nan Xiao Chun. Is this a tribute wine? After He Zhizhang read the words aloud, everyone exchanged glances. In fact, tribute wine can be sold, but a new tribute wine must first be tasted by the emperor. Only after the palace's demand is satisfied can some be circulated among the people. However, it was Li Shizhi who reacted the fastest, as expected of a chancellor. He said, this wine was brewed by Zhang Gusher himself. Sharing some with friends for tasting is nothing serious. Everyone chimed in agreement. Absolutely, absolutely. Zhang Xiaochuan continued. What you said is quite right, Li Xiang, and there's no need for everyone to worry, as there are still middle and upper grades. The middle grade premium is called Tang's Sword, and the upper grade premium is Dream's Sword. Everyone thought for a moment and realized that the best would indeed be tribute wine. So they could enjoy this Shu's sword without worry. Li Bai lamented, what a great name, Dream's Sword. I really want to taste it. He Zhizhang replied, you're being too picky, Tai Bai. Isn't this wine good enough for today? Yes, you're right. Let's drink. After all, wine lovers are free-spirited. And they soon set aside the matter and raised their cups to drink heartily. Zhang Xiaochuan intentionally struck up a casual conversation with Gao Shi while drinking and learned that Gao Shi was still struggling financially, relying on friends to get by. Currently residing in Luoyang, he hoped to be recommended to high-ranking officials, but unfortunately, his poetic talent wasn't top-notch. There were simply too many talented individuals in the Tang dynasty, and he wasn't good at networking, so his ambitions had made no progress. This visit to Li Bai was a farewell. As he planned to travel with friends in search of opportunities, Zhang Xiaochuan felt he had to seize the opportunity tonight to keep Gao Shi from leaving, otherwise, it would be a hassle to find him later. Perhaps having drunk a bit too much, Zhang Xiaochuan blurted out, Brother Gao, you know, I feel you really suit my taste. I think I have my eye on you. Why don't you just? Gao Shi quickly interrupted Zhang Xiaochuan. And Li Bai looked at him in disbelief. Although Zhang Xiaochuan was feeling tipsy and dizzy, he realized that his words could be misinterpreted, so he clarified, No. It's a misunderstanding. I meant to invite Brother Gao to help me at my technology group. The Tang Technology Group is now quite famous. So Gao Shi has also heard of it. When he heard that he was being asked to do business, he was about to refuse. But Zhang Xiaochuan reached out to stop him, clearly knowing that Gao Shi would decline. He continued, Brother Gao, don't rush to refuse, just listen to my terms. You help me for 3 years, and I will give you 10 guan in wages each month. After 3 years, regardless of whether you leave or stay, I will give you a lump sum of 60,000 guan. If you choose to stay, you can use it to settle down. If you leave, it can help you get recommendations. Li Bai and Gao Shi exclaimed in unison. What? Chapter 194. The mistake lies in not knowing where the mistake is, seeing the incredulous expressions on Li Bai and Gao Shi's faces. Zhang Xiaochuan felt confident that this matter was likely to succeed, and he repeated his conditions. Before Gao Shi could respond, Li Bai said, with such terms, I almost want to resign from my official position to help my younger brother. Although it was a joke, it highlighted how generous Zhang Xiaochuan's offer was. Li Bai's current official salary and benefits combined amounted to just over 100 guan a year, while Zhang Xiaochuan's monthly offer was equivalent to nearly 2,000 guan. Not only Li Bai, but also the other 7 immortals present were astonished. Li Shizhi teased, Tai Bai, don't just talk about yourself. Even I, the Prime Minister, am envious. Gao Xiandied, why don't you hurry and agree? At that moment, Gao Shi was truly torn. Although doing business was considered a lowly profession, the terms were incredibly generous. However, he felt that Zhang Xiaochuan was joking, so he asked, is it true that you are offering such terms? Zhang Xiaochuan offered such high compensation because, firstly, he genuinely needed someone to manage the overall situation, and secondly, it was a way to attract other down-and-out scholars. Of course, he could formalize the agreement right away. However, he thought to himself, it's not that I look down on Zhang Xiaochuan, but can he really afford such generous terms? Zhang Xiaochuan smiled without answering, but Li Bai interjected, Gao Shi-san, you came late. If you had arrived a bit earlier, you would have witnessed Zhang Xiaochuan's extravagant spending. Someone who can spend 1,000 guan just to visit a brothel 1 TB short on this little amount. Really? Gao Shi still found it hard to believe and looked at Zhang Xiaochuan, who nodded with a smile. Gao Shi made up his mind and said, all right, my lord. Please allow me to bow to you. Zhang Xiaochuan accepted Gao Shi's bow with composure and then took out a plaque, which was the same kind given to Li Bai, marked as a token of hospitality. This is a token. Take it to the Zhang family in Suzhou, and you will naturally be attended to. Gao Shi saw that the plaque was exquisite and transparent, feeling cold and heavy in his hand, with golden characters saying hospitality, along with a few small characters he did not recognize. In fact, the small characters were the number N0002. Feeling that it was too precious, Gao Shi reached out to return it to Zhang Xiaochuan, saying, this item is too valuable. Please take it back, my lord. Zhang Xiaochuan waved his hand. Keep it. I'm sure you will need funds for your journey. Take this first and don't decline. Consider it in advance on your wages. Saying this, he placed a stack of 100 guan vouchers in Gao Shi's hand. Gao Shi had never seen such vouchers before and was somewhat taken aback. Li Bai, standing nearby, explained, this is a voucher that can be exchanged for an equivalent amount of copper coins at the shops of the top 10 wealthy merchants. Gao Shi felt a deep, inexplicable emotion upon seeing Zhang Xiaochuan value him so highly. He suddenly experienced a sense of willingness to sacrifice for someone who truly understands him. Gao Shi thought that in the following 3 years, he must work hard to repay Zhang Xiaochuan, and even if he became an official in the future, he would not forget today's kindness. Little did he know that this journey would essentially sell his life to Zhang Xiaochuan, making it impossible for him to return to hold an official position. Zhang Xiaochuan was also pleased to have Gao Shi's assistance. Together with the 8 immortals and Gongsun Li, they drank to excess, becoming thoroughly intoxicated, and by the end, none knew how it concluded. The next day, Zhang Xiaochuan was awakened from his dreams by a call. Given his notorious morning grouchiness, he was about to burst into a tirade when he saw that the person before him was Gao Li Shi. Zhang Xiaochuan quickly got up to pay his respects, saying, greetings, High Inner Minister. Although he acknowledged Gao Li Shi, his sour expression suggested that someone owed him a great deal of money. Gao Li Shi looked at Zhang Xiaochuan, unsure of how to respond. Other officials, even princes, would show utmost respect when awakened by him. Yet this young man treated him with disdain, truly remarkable. Gao Li Shi had no choice but to get straight to the point. Zhang Zhu Shi, please get up quickly, the emperor summons you. Seeing that Gao Li Shi had guessed the emperor's intent, Zhang Xiaochuan internally complained, if it weren't for the opportunity to develop industry, I wouldn't bother with this ridiculous official position. It's worse than being a mere laborer in my past life. Despite his foul mood, he still spoke respectfully. Please have High Inner Minister wait in the main hall. I will rise shortly. Also, remember to bring the wine and vouchers into the palace. Upon hearing this, Zhang Xiaochuan understood it was about last night's events. Perhaps it was to support Li Xiu, though he felt that might not be the case. It was no use speculating. At worst, he could forgo the money. But he still needed to give the emperor face. Inside the Nanju hall, the emperor questioned boldly, Zhang Xiaochuan, do you know your crime? Zhang Xiaochuan felt helpless. What kind of issue was this? What crime do you mean? Can't you just state the matter plainly? But under the emperor's roof, one must bow their head. He had no choice but to kneel and replied, I acknowledge my crime. The emperor asked, then tell me what crime you have committed? Lowering his head, Zhang Xiaochuan first silently cursed Li Longji in his heart before saying, my sin is that I do not even know what wrong I have committed, and I hope your majesty will punish me. A chuckle escaped Li Longji's lips at Zhang Xiaochuan's response. Haha, you dare to say that? Fine. I won't beat around the bush. Did you bring the wine? Zhang Xiaochuan mused. Is this not beating around the bush? If he did, we might not get to the point for days. Gao Li Shi replied, your majesty, it has been brought. As he spoke, Gao Li Shi waved to the outside, and 2 young eunuchs entered carrying a box. Gao Li Shi took a bottle and presented it to Li Longji. Li Longji observed the water droplet-shaped bottle with a blue gradient exterior, smooth and warm to the touch, and couldn't he help but admire that even the vessel for the wine was a treasure. However, the liquid inside was clear and transparent, with no scent of wine wafting out. It couldn't possibly be a beautiful facade with no substance. One would have to open it to know for sure. He then inquired, how is this opened? Why do I not detect any aroma? Zhang Xiaochuan thought to himself that this old fellow wouldn't even let him get up. So he needed to remind him, your majesty, this wine bottle uses a special sealing process, keeping the aroma intact for long-term storage, which is why you can't smell anything. How about I demonstrate it for you? Li Longji saw that Zhang Xiaochuan was still kneeling and waved his hand, saying, get up and show me. Zhang Xiaochuan picked up the wine bottle and pointed to the arrow on the dashed line at the bottom of the cap, saying, "Your Majesty, look." Hold the bottle with one hand and twist the cap in the direction of this arrow with the other. With a crack, the cap broke off at the dash line. After removing the cap, Zhang Xiaochuan said, "There's an inner cap inside. Just press it down." The moment Zhang Xiaochuan pressed down the inner cap, a rich aroma of wine wafted out. Even though Li Longji was an emperor who had tasted fine wines, he couldn't help but exclaim, "What a good wine. The fragrance is so rich and long-lasting, almost tangible. It must be excellent. Quickly, fill my cup. Your Majesty, if there are glass wine vessels, they would pair perfectly with this wine. General Gao, go fetch them quickly." Chapter 195. I really am not a wine lover. After Li Longji instructed Gao Lisher to get the wine vessels, he turned to Zhang Xiaochuan, taking the opportunity to calculate. "I heard this wine is brewed by you? Your Majesty, this is brewed jointly by me and the Wei family. You had a hangover last night." Zhang Xiaochuan thought, this emperor is really idle, asking so many details, but he still smiled and said, "I happened to bump into the 8 immortals of wine while wandering around and ended up drinking a few more cups." "A few cups? I've heard that you drank 2 large boxes, dozens of bottles. You've only just arrived in the capital and have already gotten familiar with them. It seems you are also a wine lover." Zhang Xiaochuan felt quite wronged. "Your Majesty, I truly am not a wine lover. It was just a coincidence." Li Longji glared. "Dare you lie to me? If you are not a wine lover, how could you invent such fine wine? Is it the Wei family? The Wei family hasn't produced new wine in years. You just went to them?" Zhang Xiaochuan had no choice but to admit, the new wine is indeed related to me. "But I really am not a wine lover. Don't try to argue." "Damn, he is threatening me. Fine, I admit, I am guilty. I am a wine lover. In the future, I will remind myself that good wine can cause trouble and drink in moderation." "Very good." Zhang Xiaochuan mentally cursed Li Longji with a string of gibberish. Gao Lisher entered holding an exquisite wooden box, placed it on the table, opened it immediately, and handed a small wine cup to Zhang Xiaochuan. Unexpectedly, after Zhang Xiaochuan took the small cup, he didn't pour the wine directly, but instead took out a wine decanter from the box. As Gao Lisher and Li Longji watched in confusion, he poured 2/3 of the wine into the decanter and then lifted it gently, swirling the cup. The wine danced within, and the aroma filled the air. Zhang Xiaochuan said while shaking, "This freshly opened wine is like a sleeping beauty. It needs to be awakened to show its most beautiful appearance. All right, now the beauty is awake." Saying this, he poured the wine from the decanter into the small cup, filling it to the brim without spilling. Zhang Xiaochuan gently pinched the cup and brought it to his nose to smell. Fragrant. "The first sip is for tasting. Take a small sip and let the wine flow gently over the tip of your tongue before swallowing slowly to savor its rich aroma." As he spoke, he followed his own advice and took a sip, closing his eyes to enjoy it. Gao Lisher was about to intervene and stop him for drinking so recklessly in front of the emperor, but he was stopped by Li Longji's hand. Zhang Xiaochuan then continued, "The second sip is for respect. One should take a big gulp in honor. The wine should go deep down the throat, with the cheeks pressing against the tongue, and then swallow it down, feeling the spicy richness, refreshing." He then poured the wine into his mouth forcefully, closed his eyes, and swallowed it in big gulps, savoring it so much that he couldn't help but smack his lips, causing even those who appreciate good wine to drool. Li Longji quickly followed Zhang Xiaochuan's method and, after finishing his drink, found it to be quite similar to what Zhang had described, fully experiencing the aroma and richness of the strong liquor. However, this old fellow did not praise him but instead teased Zhang Xiaochuan, saying, "You're quite the old wine connoisseur. With your drinking style, even the 8 immortals would be outdone by you. But this way of drinking is indeed thrilling. Did you invent it? Why has no one discovered it before?" Zhang Xiaochuan, feeling annoyed by Li Longji's teasing, thought about ignoring him, but that was impossible, so he had to respond. "Actually, the reason no one drank this way before is that the wine was different. Your Majesty, did you notice the difference after drinking? It was indeed different." But when Li Longji was asked to specify how it was different, he couldn't articulate it clearly at the moment. So, relying on his status as emperor, he insisted, "Stop beating around the bush and tell me quickly. There is a saying among the people, wine is the essence of grain. The wine we drink actually consists of 2 components, water and the essence of grain, commonly known as alcohol." At this point, Zhang Xiaochuan paused, worried that Li Longji might not grasp it, before continuing. "The ratio of alcohol to water is referred to as the degree of the wine. 1 degree means there is 1% alcohol in the wine. The wine you've usually consumed is about 10 degrees, which is why it tastes a bit bland. Today's wine, however, is 43 degrees, which is why it feels exceptionally rich." Li Longji understood most of it and exclaimed, "Wine is indeed the essence of grain. There are truly knowledgeable people among the populace. Your explanation is not only novel but also gets to the essence of it. No wonder such good wine can be brewed." Zhang Xiaochuan respectfully replied, "Thank you for your praise, Your Majesty. According to what you said, doesn't that mean the higher the degree, the better the wine? I wonder if it's possible to brew wine with 100 degrees. In his mind, Zhang Xiaochuan muttered that it wouldn't even be called wine then. That would be ethanol. However, he replied seriously, "In theory, it could be brewed, but alcohol is the essence of grain, containing immense spiritual power. Based on my calculations, it should not exceed 55 degrees. If the degree is higher, the concentrated spiritual power may harm the internal organs." Li Longji nodded in agreement. That's what they call going too far. He then asked, by the way, I heard this wine is merely of inferior quality. Why not present the medium and superior quality? Are you trying to deceive me? Zhang Xiaochuan felt exasperated, thinking that the emperor must have some issues, suddenly flipping the script. However, the new wine had been brewed for about a month. The Wei family Shun Ti still have failed to deliver it to the palace. The person then said, Your Majesty, I currently only have inferior quality. Regarding the medium and superior quality, I have a question. Speak. The person continued. It has been over a month since my family created this wine, and logically, my family should have presented it by now. However, it seems you have yet to taste this wine, which I truly do not understand. Li Longji looked at Gao Lishur and asked, Has my family sent any wine to the palace recently? I will check right away. Gao Lishur was quite efficient and returned shortly, saying to Li Longji, Your Majesty, my family indeed sent a batch of wine a few days ago, but traditionally, we first drink the aged wine before the new ones. Therefore, the new wine is still in the storage and has not been opened. Unexpectedly, it turned out to be a misunderstanding. The higher the position, the more one cherishes their reputation. Li Longji remarked, This is an excuse. Didn't he, the person from my family who presented the wine, indicate that it was new wine? Gao Lishur was at a loss for words. However, being a person of deep thought, he had anticipated the emperor's questions when he went to check. So he had already summoned the eunuch in charge of the inner storage to wait outside, which proved useful. Your Majesty, the eunuch in charge is waiting outside. I will call him in to inquire. All right. Gao Lishur shouted outside, Summon the eunuch in charge. After the eunuch entered, Gao Lishur quickly repeated the previous question. The eunuch replied, Your Majesty, the person who delivered the wine from my family did specifically mention that it was new wine, but in previous years, there have often been new wines that were quite similar, so I didn't pay much attention in my busyness. Li Longji slammed the table. You foolish thing. Acting on your own. 20 strokes of the cane. Thank you for your Majesty's grace. Knowing that the storage should contain new wine. Li Longji then took Gao Lishur and Zhang Xiaochuan to the inner storage. Upon entering the storage room where the wine was kept, they saw dozens of wooden boxes placed separately in one area. Normally, wine is transported in large jars, but this time it was all packed in wooden boxes, clearly different from the usual wine. Seeing this, Li Longji became even angrier. These fools, don't they know to pay attention? If they had opened and checked earlier, it wouldn't have caused such a huge embarrassment for me. At this moment, Gao Lishur had already opened a wooden box labeled Tang, Ji Jian wine, and took out a bottle. The bottle was made of glass with a yellow gradient, and the words on it were in gold, looking extraordinarily noble. Li Longji took it in his hand. Good. Quickly open that one too. Gao Lishur opened another wooden box labeled Meng, Ji Jian wine. The bottle inside was made of purple gradient glass, looking noble and elegant with a dreamy quality. Returning with the new wine to the hall, this time Zhang Xiaochuan didn't need to assist. Gao Lishur had completely memorized Zhang Xiaochuan's previous steps. The two types of new wine were poured and placed on the table. Li Longji inhaled the refreshing aroma of the wine and picked up a cup to taste. After tasting, he said, Not bad. It is richer and spicier than Shu Ji Jian, with a more fragrant aftertaste. What are the differences between these two? Zhang Xiaochuan replied, Both of these are at 52 degrees. Currently, aside from my family's winery, only your Majesty here has them. As for the Shu Ji Jian tasted earlier, it will be sold as a new wine. Upon hearing this, the emperor's vanity was greatly satisfied. Yes, an emperor should enjoy the best. Maintaining a calm demeanor, he said, Well, this matter is not entirely your fault. It is the people below who have not done their jobs properly, which is why I am only tasting such delicacies today. Clearly, the emperor's embarrassment had not completely faded, and there would still be consequences for others, which was no longer Zhang Xiaochuan's concern. Meanwhile, Zhang Xiaochuan thought to himself, the so-called special supply for the emperor is merely a gimmick. It is still sold at high prices in secret. After all, the wine sent to the palace can still be stolen and sold in the market. As the emperor is the biggest spokesperson and no one is foolish enough to miss that. The matter of the wine was behind them. And Li Longji brought up the issue of the vouchers. I hear that the vouchers also come from you? Did you bring any? Your Majesty, I have brought some. Zhang Xiaochuan replied, taking out a package. Gao Lishur received it and presented it to the emperor's table. When opened, it revealed 10 neatly stacked bundles of vouchers. Li Longji casually took one stack, tore off the binding paper, and examined a voucher in his hand. At this moment, he was shocked. He had heard that there were things called vouchers circulating in the marketplace that could replace copper coins, but he had thought they were simply certificates of credit exchanged among a few merchants, similar to IOUs. Yesterday, Zhang Xiaochuan had a drinking contest with Li Xiao and was reported to the emperor early in the morning by Li Linfu. However, Li Linfu claimed that Zhang Xiaochuan disrespected the emperor, failing to present exquisite wine to repay the nation's grace, and instead squandered it in brothels. He also mentioned the vouchers, which led Li Longji to have Gao Lishur investigate the details before summoning Zhang Xiaochuan to the palace. Besides punishing Zhang Xiaochuan for the drinking contest, he also wanted to understand the vouchers. However, upon seeing the vouchers, it was clear that they were far more than he expected. Firstly, the craftsmanship was exquisite, truly a marvel. Secondly, the material felt neither paper nor cloth, being both flexible and sturdy. Thirdly, the color could even change. As an emperor, and a remarkably wise one at that, Li Longji had an inkling that the vouchers were something extraordinary, but he still had questions. Therefore he said, explain this voucher to me. Zhang Xiaochuan then elaborated on the function of the vouchers, their issuance model, material characteristics, and anti-counterfeiting features to the emperor. After hearing all this, Li Longji was even more shocked. He could not calm his heart for a long time. If these vouchers gained public acceptance through circulation, wouldn't that mean they could be printed at will? This was not just a voucher, it was clearly creating money, which was equivalent to counterfeiting currency. This kid was plotting a rebellion. Thinking of this, Li Longji slammed the table, stood up, and angrily pointed at Zhang Xiaochuan. Bold Zhang Xiaochuan, you dare to rebel. Find him. Not knowing what had caused the emperor's sudden fury, Zhang Xiaochuan had no time to think and could only plead for his life, shouting, Your Majesty, I am wronged. At that moment, guards rushed in and pinned Zhang Xiaochuan to the ground. He felt as if his arms were trapped in iron clamps. With a weight like a boulder pressing against his back, his face pressed to the ground, completely powerless to resist. Zhang Xiaochuan felt like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered, suddenly sensing death so close. Indeed, accompanying a ruler is like accompanying a tiger, but what has this tyrant gone mad about? Framed? How dare you claim to be wronged? You minted coins illegally, and not only that, but you also issued new currency. Don't you think you deserve to die for this? Upon hearing this, Zhang Xiaochuan realized it was because of this matter. Damn it, couldn't we have communicated first? Why the immediate calls for punishment? But with his face pressed to the ground, he couldn't speak, only managing to utter vaguely, Your Majesty, please allow me to explain. Li Longji realized he had overreacted. At least he should clarify the situation before passing judgment. He waved his hand, and the guards released Zhang Xiaochuan, allowing him to step outside the hall. Li Longji said, Speak, I want to hear your explanation. After being released, Zhang Xiaochuan felt pain all over his body. Although it was just a brief moment, his face felt somewhat numb. He inwardly cursed, This tyrant, one day I will make someone hold you down too. However, for now, he needed to appease the emperor and get through this hurdle first. Your Majesty, I've already mentioned that this currency voucher can be exchanged for copper coins at any time. It essentially is still copper coins. Then why not just use copper coins directly? Why go through the trouble of creating this voucher? I suspect you have ulterior motives. Zhang Xiaochuan explained. Copper coins are fine for small purchases, but for large transactions, they are very inconvenient. But there are silk and gold and silver. Why must you use your vouchers? I suspect you are acting out of self-interest. Your Majesty, I have good intentions. This is beneficial for the country and the people. I am not doing this for myself, but for the citizens of the Tang dynasty, and for you. Li Longji found it increasingly suspicious that he could even tie it to the benefit of the country and the people. So he asked, Then explain how it benefits the country and the people. If you cannot provide a reasonable explanation, I will surely have your head today. Chapter 197. The currency voucher for the country and the people. Zhang Xiaochuan closed his eyes in contemplation, mainly sorting through his thoughts, as he had anticipated this day when he first issued the currency vouchers. After a moment of reflection, he said, As I mentioned earlier, copper coins have two fatal issues. First, they are too heavy and inconvenient for large transactions. Second, there is a prevalence of counterfeit currency. Both of these harm the interests of ordinary people, which naturally harms the interests of the Tang dynasty. Li Longji interjected, How so? Copper coins are not suitable for large transactions, so during such transactions, people resort to silk, gold, silver, livestock, or even properties. Although these items have approximate values, Your Majesty, there is a saying, the weak have no pricing power. In simple terms, while these goods have prices, they also have a range of fluctuation. During transactions, the strong can set high prices for their goods while pushing down the prices of the weaker's goods. This way, the strong can gain more benefits in transactions without any cost. Li Longji nodded in agreement. What you say makes sense. And what about the counterfeit currency? The counterfeit currency refers to those minted illegally. Because they are not made of pure copper, they can only circulate at a depreciated value, often worth half the stated amount. However, there exists the same problem as previously mentioned. An ordinary citizen sells grain for 100 coins, but the grain merchant pays with 100 coins of inferior quality. Because the citizen is in a weak position, they can only accept it, resulting in a loss of half their income. Unknowingly, Li Longji was led into this situation by Zhang Xiaochuan, as inferior currency has always been a chronic issue in the dynasty. He continued, Indeed, inferior currency harms the people significantly, yet it remains difficult to eradicate. The court is also limited in its ability to act. Your Majesty, the solution is actually quite simple. Li Longji was delighted to hear this. What good plan do you have, my minister? Zhang Xiaochuan smiled slightly, adopting a wise demeanor, and said, If we could create a type of copper coin that cannot be counterfeited, wouldn't that resolve the issue? Li Longji's expression immediately turned cold. Do you dare to mock me? What coin is there that cannot be counterfeited? Zhang Xiaochuan pointed to the voucher on the table. Isn't this one? Nonsense. How can this not be? Li Longji paused mid-sentence, realizing that this truly could not be counterfeited. It dawned on him that this was precisely the reason he intended to punish him. Due to the money shortage and the long-standing issues caused by inferior currency, he had been drawn into this dilemma. If this technology existed, issuing paper currency to replace copper coins would resolve everything. Although this was different from his initial intention, it was an unexpected delight. He said, So, you intend to present this technology to me? Zhang Xiaochuan replied, I can provide the technology to your Majesty, but your Majesty cannot print it. Ridiculous. You can print, so why can't I? I have stated that for every voucher issued. 1 copper coin or its equivalent must be stored in the treasury to prevent others from exchanging the voucher for copper coins. Li Longji responded, I can do the same. I have 10 wealthy merchants, as well as merchants from across the realm and court supervision, so this copper coin must be stored. But who will supervise the court and supervise your majesty? Li Longji was rendered speechless, and after some thought, he had no countermeasure. He wanted to say that as the emperor, he would be trustworthy and would not print recklessly, but in times of war or natural disasters, when the treasury is depleted, it becomes difficult to guarantee that. If he did not print, his ministers would. Suddenly, Li Longji slapped his forehead. Realizing he was missing the point, surely you must have a solution? Yes, just like this. I print, and your majesty supervises. Upon hearing this, Li Longji realized, that's right. I don't grasp the technology, so my supervision wouldn't be effective, but you have all the technology. But you could secretly print elsewhere, and I wouldn't know. Your majesty is absolutely correct. I can provide the technology to your majesty, and your majesty can improve part of it. I will handle the paper crafting and initial printing, and your majesty will complete the final step of printing. This must be done collaboratively to succeed. This plan was indeed feasible, but it was significant. So I still need to discuss it with the court officials. Do as you see fit, your majesty. Li Longji said, let us leave it at that for today. If there is nothing else, you may leave. Zhang Xiaochuan felt the abrupt ending was a bit sudden, and he instinctively exclaimed, you have made such a significant contribution. Shouldn't there be a reward? The key issue is that you want me to step down. What about my payment? Thus, I said, your majesty, my vouchers. Li Longji glared, what vouchers? At such a young age, why are you being so calculative? Leave them here for my study. Zhang Xiaochuan muttered a string of nonsense in his heart and respectfully replied, yes, your majesty, I will take my leave now. Li Longji waved his hand, signaling Zhang Xiaochuan to quickly leave. As Zhang Xiaochuan exited the grand hall, he continued to grumble. Seriously, so stingy. Not only no reward, but they even withheld my vouchers. What did the chief say? This question startled Zhang Xiaochuan, his eyes widening as he asked, Gao Neishi, do you walk without making a sound? Gao Lishur smiled but didn't he respond, instead saying, let me see off Chief Zhang. Although Zhang Xiaochuan had no talent for social matters, he had watched many historical dramas in his past life and knew that he should offer something at this moment. So, he discreetly slipped a stack of vouchers to Gao Lishur while saying, thank you for your trouble, Gao Neishi. Gao Lishur did not refuse, quietly accepting them as if nothing had happened, and said, Chief Zhang, there are some things you might not fully understand since you just entered the service. Allow me to remind you, and please don't think I'm being verbose. How could that be? Thank you for your guidance, Gao Neishi. You've only been in the service for less than a month and have already risen from the 8th rank to the 6th rank. This is a level of honor that many people never achieve in their entire lives. Moreover, the tasks assigned to you have yet to be completed. The matter of the wine, after all, involves the Wei family, and your vouchers are still in the early stages. Gao Lishur paused here, and Zhang Xiaochuan understood, quickly saying, it was my rashness. I should not have held any resentment. Gao Lishur was pleased with Zhang Xiaochuan's response, nodding, not only that, you should also be grateful. Without those vouchers, do you think you could have reclaimed yesterday's rewards? Zhang Xiaochuan thought, it's not that I underestimated the situation, but rather you all underestimated me. Although I may not be as cunning as the Li family, I have the advantage of strength. In the face of absolute power, all schemes are futile. However, now is not the time to overturn the table. On the surface, he appeared enlightened and very appreciative, saying, thank you for your guidance, Gao Neishi. I understand now. Unknowingly, they had already reached the palace gate, and Zhang Xiaochuan bid farewell and left the palace. Chapter 198. Reward you with the main entrance. Gao Lishur returned to the Nanhan Hall, and Li Longji asked, how was it? As your majesty predicted. There were indeed some grievances, but I took the liberty to offer a few suggestions, and he has now come to terms with it. Upon hearing that Zhang Xiaochuan had grievances, Li Longji was not angry. Instead, he smiled and said, it's nothing to worry about. It's normal for a child to have a simple mind. Does he have any difficulties in the capital? Chief Zhang is wealthy and generous. Plus, he has your majesty's protection. How could he have any difficulties? If I were to say, there is indeed a small matter. What is it? He currently resides in a mansion in Pingkangfang, which was originally the outer residence of Princess Taiping. Due to regulations, he can only enter and exit through a side door. When I went there, I made a blunder and lingered at the main door for a long time without anyone responding before realizing it. Gao Lishur spoke while showing a look of embarrassment. When Li Longji heard this, he laughed heartily and said, it seems General Gao has a clear understanding. This is indeed a matter that is beneficial without cost and can also demonstrate the grace of the emperor. Then grant him a brocade robe and allow him to enter and exit through the main gate. At Li Linfu's residence, Li Linfu looked at the servant in front of him and asked, what is the news? The servant reported, Master, Zhang Xiaochuan has left the palace, escorted by General Gao. Shortly after, an attendant came to Zhang Xiaochuan's residence to convey an edict, seemingly a reward. Li Linfu maintained a calm demeanor and nodded, I see, you may leave. He then turned to Li Xiu and said, go to the treasury and withdraw some money to send to Zhang Xiaochuan. Li Xiu replied, are we really going to accept such a loss? What if we don't give it to him? Seeing that his son couldn't grasp such a simple matter, Li Linfu felt a bit frustrated and said, remember, when it involves the emperor, one must act according to the rules and not have any complacent thoughts. Do you understand? Li Xiu looked confused, clearly not understanding, but he did not dare to contradict Li Linfu and could only reluctantly agree. Not long after Zhang Xiaochuan returned to his residence, an attendant came to announce the edict, bestowing him a brocade robe and jade belt, and allowing him to enter and exit through the main gate. Upon hearing this, Zhang Xiaochuan was delighted, finally able to use the main entrance. He quickly accepted the edict with gratitude and arranged for the main gate to be opened wide. No longer having to sneak in and out like a thief, this was how it should be. However, not long after the main gate was opened, Li Shou arrived with 20,000 coins, most of which were silk and brocade, filling over 10 carts. Although Zhang Xiaochuan was quite wealthy now, who would ever complain about having too much money? Seeing such a large amount delivered, Zhang Xiaochuan couldn't help but smile widely. However, giving only 1,000 coins to the emperor felt a bit insufficient, so he immediately had half of it sent to the palace. After all the hustle and bustle, it was almost dark when Luo Xiaohu came to inform him that Gao Shi had visited today to bid farewell. However, upon hearing that Zhang Xiaochuan had gone to the palace, he left and set off for Shuzhou today. Yesterday, during the competition of wealth at Fengfei Tower, Zhang Xiaochuan realized that the vouchers were even more popular than he had imagined, so he arranged for an increased print run and released them all. It was uncertain when the emperor would start printing paper money, so he believed that only by quickly injecting a large amount of circulating currency could the development of commerce be stimulated. Although the issuance of the Jiazi in the Song dynasty failed, it initially very effectively stimulated commercial development. The Tang dynasty actually had a better commercial environment. But the issues of bad currency and money shortages had never been resolved, severely hindering the development of the commodity economy. He also arranged for someone to go to Yuzhou, remembering that there were 2 massive copper mines in the area in later times. Taking advantage of the current shortage of copper resources, Zhang Xiaochuan could utilize new technologies for mining, making it almost as efficient as pulling money home every day. He also planned to include aluminum mining. Although aluminum is a scarce resource, its reserves are actually high, but exist in a mixed state. Unlike gold, silver, copper, and iron that can be smelted through heating, aluminum must undergo a chemical reaction to obtain pure aluminum. However, for Zhang Xiaochuan, who mastered later chemical knowledge, this was very simple. After making these arrangements, Luo Xiaohu went to the telegraph office to send the message to Zhuangzi. It must be said that this communication efficiency had already caught up with the telephones of later times. Zhang Xiaochuan was exhausted after finishing everything, feeling like he might collapse at any moment. He fell straight into bed and didn't even have time to look at the telegram that came from Zhuang. The next day, Zhang Xiaochuan saw the telegram, which stated that the roof demolition and repair work had passed the test and could meet the operational requirements within the scheduled time. He jumped out of bed, exclaiming, "That's great." He hurriedly took the telegram and went to find Luo Xiaohu. From a distance, he called out, "The Baiyuguang plan can start now. Hurry up and inform Uncle Imo. The operation is tentatively set for 3 days later." Luo Xiaohu replied, "Okay, I'll arrange it right away. Wait a moment. To ensure everything goes smoothly, let Uncle Imo participate in the operation himself." Luo Xiaohu nodded in agreement and went to make arrangements. At that moment, someone reported from outside that someone from the Dou family was seeking an audience. Zhang Xiaochuan said, "I didn't expect the Dou family to be so well informed. Please let them in." Before long, a servant acting as a guard led a group of people in. The leader, upon seeing Zhang Xiaochuan, was momentarily surprised but quickly composed himself. With a smile, he greeted Zhang Xiaochuan, "I am Dou Yi, the head of the Dou family. You must be Zhang Xiaoxianqi. It's truly a pleasure to meet you at last." Zhang Xiaochuan responded politely, "Your reputation precedes you, Dou Yuanwei. Just call me by my name. I can't bear the title of Xiaoxianqi." Dou Yi replied, "Then I shall take the liberty to call you Xiandi." Zhang Xiaochuan responded, "In that case, I will call you Dou Xiong." Dou Yi had a somewhat peculiar expression as he said, "I shouldn't be so curious, but I can't help but notice your hairstyle. Could you enlighten me?" This was definitely not the first time someone had asked, and Zhang Xiaochuan had almost formed a standard response. He quickly explained the reason and added that he found short hair more comfortable and had no plans to grow it out again. Dou Yi could only sigh at the complexities involved and didn't he say much more, as the Tang dynasty was a very tolerant period. And it was common to see people from various nations and ethnicities on the streets of Chang'an, including many from minority groups with short hair. Zhang Xiaochuan didn't want to waste time on this topic, so he changed the subject, asking, "What brings you here today, Dou Xiong?" Dou Yi suddenly seemed to wake up and said, "Oh, last time you held that press conference in Shuzhou, I couldn't attend due to the long journey, which was truly regrettable. I heard you are now an official in the capital, so I specifically came to meet you and brought some small gifts to congratulate you." "There's no need for gifts, just visiting is enough. You've gone to too much trouble," Zhang Xiaochuan said. Dou Yi insisted, "It's only proper etiquette." He then presented a list of gifts, which was quite substantial, including gold, silver, jade, and various precious items like furs, spices, and rare medicinal materials. Zhang Xiaochuan couldn't assess their value, but estimated they were worth at least 1,000 taels, indicating that Dou Yi must have something important to discuss. Zhang Xiaochuan casually set the gift list aside and asked, "Dou Xiong, this can't just be a simple gift-giving visit. Feel free to speak your mind." Chapter 199. The clever Dou Yi seeing Zhang Xiaochuan so direct. Dou Yi no longer beat around the bush and got straight to the point. "I am here regarding the construction of the industrial park." "I'm all ears," Zhang Xiaochuan replied. "According to the planning of a certain individual, An industrial park will be built in a designated area in a year and a half. And this cooperation opportunity has been secured by my family. The competition in this area is fierce, and it is indeed not easy for my family to obtain this opportunity. The other party nodded to indicate for me to continue. I said, to speak frankly, the timing for this initiative is too late. I hope it can be moved up. As time waits for no one. The other party asked, so, when does my brother wish to start? Naturally, the sooner the better. Ideally coinciding with the launch of the industrial park in another region. The other party shook his head. That is not feasible. You are asking for too much. I quickly replied, no. Although he possesses remarkable skills, he lacks experience in business matters. I could tell that the upcoming remarks might touch on sensitive points. So I only said part of it, yet it is true that he still has a long way to go in this regard. I wasn't angry, but instead said, please, speak frankly. There is no need to hold back. In that case, I will be straightforward. Initially, I was informed that collaborating with your family required a significant sum, and I thought you were asking for an exorbitant amount, which led me to scold the person in charge. At this point, I paused, noting that he remained calm. Before continuing, it was only after visiting the industrial park that I realized the initial amount was actually not much, and in fact, it should be increased. Thus, my family is willing to raise the cooperation funds to a larger sum. I saw infinite possibilities in the industrial park. It is not merely a workshop, but a key to a new path in manufacturing. With machine tools and alloy technology, we can upgrade all past tools. This is not just a workshop or two. It should be called a factory, and it's much more than just a couple of factories. The other party's expression also showed excitement, surprised that someone had recognized the value of machine tools, the mother of industry. Unable to contain himself, he said, you are right. I didn't expect you to see the key point. Do you know that machine tools have another name? What? The mother of industry. The phrase rolled off my tongue. And then I clapped my hands. That name is very apparent. The various equipment and tools I saw in your family South Industrial Park, although differing in function, all owe their success to machine tools. It is most appropriate to call it the mother of industry. However, if you collaborate with us, it means you are handing over this technology to us. Why would you do that? You might think I am foolish. If I hold this technology alone, I could sell equipment and tools to maintain absolute advantage and always dominate in business transactions, right? I nodded in agreement. That is about the gist of it. Although I would benefit, I still want to know how you think. I replied, the people suffer greatly, toiling in the fields and barely making ends meet. It's a luxury for them to have meat occasionally, and any natural disaster or misfortune could lead to the destruction of their families. The other party seemed a bit bewildered by my statement, but still followed up. You are compassionate and concerned for the people's hardships. The hardships of the common people are a phenomenon, but that's not the main point. The core issue is that this reflects low productivity. Only by promoting industrial development and enhancing productivity can we advance the process of civilization, which in turn will lead to a variety of goods emerging in a civilized society. Zhang Xiaochuan's words were chaotic, leaving Dou Yi confused. In fact, Zhang Xiaochuan's true aim was to push society into the information age. However, if the basic industrial technology remains confidential, it seems he may never achieve this in his lifetime. The need to mine minerals himself is too cumbersome. Once industry develops and basic chemistry is promoted, we can quickly reach industrial civilization, allowing us to master the world with more advanced technology. If one only develops technology for oneself, what is the point of creating a computer or a satellite? It's like a human living among a group of animals. Wearing luxury goods, who are you showing it to? Dou Yi looked at Zhang Xiaochuan in bewilderment and asked, so what exactly do you want to say? Zhang Xiaochuan didn't want to explain and shifted the topic, saying, that's not important. The key issue is that you want to start building the industrial park ahead of time. My production speed and manpower can't keep up. Do you have any solutions? Right. We're talking about the industrial park. I have a rough idea of the reasons you mentioned, and indeed it might be a bit difficult to build simultaneously with the Wang family. However, I have a way to start at least a year earlier. Zhang Xiaochuan immediately perked up. Tell me more. Building an industrial park naturally requires various buildings. As long as there are blueprints, I can arrange craftsmen to follow them. You just need to arrange for a couple of experienced masters to supervise on-site. Meanwhile, I can send people to learn while building during the Wang family's construction, which will expedite the process. The most important point is to first construct the machine tools in the new industrial park. That way, the new industrial park can. Yes, Zhang Xiaochuan's sudden exclamation startled Dou Yi, but Zhang Xiaochuan was too excited. Dou Yi's words seemed to open a door for him. He could just provide technical materials after receiving the payment, without needing to get directly involved in building a machine processing factory. This was a feasible idea. He said, Dou Yi, you truly have awakened me from my dream. I understand the rest now. Please prepare, and we can arrange for people to go directly to the Zhang family factory to learn the technology. Upon hearing that the goal was achieved, Dou Yi couldn't help but express his joy. You're straightforward, so I'll go back and arrange for manpower to set off as soon as possible. Wait a moment. Dou Yi thought Zhang Xiaochuan wanted to entertain him and declined, saying, time waits for no one. Another day, I'll treat you properly. You misunderstood, Dou Yi. I have a small gift for you, just a moment. Dou Yi felt he couldn't rush to leave anymore. Soon, a servant came in carrying a wooden box. Zhang Xiaochuan pointed at the box and said, this is a new wine from Jin and Xiaochun, with 6 bottles inside. Please don't blame me for being stingy. This item is truly precious. Dou Yi was taken aback. Could it be the famous Shu Ji Jian wine that has been making waves recently? That is indeed very precious. Zhang Xiaochuan shook his head and said, no, I can't possibly bring this out as a gift for Brother Do. This is the exquisite Dream Sword Liquor. What kind of liquor is the Dream Sword Liquor? Zhang Xiaochuan briefly introduced the three-sword series of Jian, Nanxiao Chun, and after listening, Dou Yi's expression changed dramatically. Filled with excitement and happiness. This gift is too generous. My brother cannot accept something so precious. Zhang Xiaochuan replied, if Brother Dou doesn't accept it, it means you are not giving me face. Well then, I will reluctantly accept it. Zhang Xiaochuan added, Brother Dou, you know this item is a tribute, so do not flaunt it too much, enjoy it quietly. This was actually a redundant statement. Knowing that the other party wouldn't comply, it was still necessary to say it. If one received such good liquor and didn't show it off, what would be the point? Did they really think it was immortal liquor? Dou Yi also clearly wouldn't refuse. But he solemnly replied, rest assured, my brother will keep it well hidden. Though he said this, in his heart, he had already planned the banquet time and the guest list. After saying this, the two exchanged smiles. Chapter 200. The disappearance case in the secret chamber. With just 7 days left until Li Zhao's wedding, Chang'an had already begun its preparations, adorned with festive colors. Princess Xianyi lazily got up from her large bed, where her maid was helping her get dressed. A beam of spring sunlight streamed into the room, creating a very pleasant atmosphere. Not good. A cry of alarm broke the tranquility. Princess Xianyi shouted at the maid who rushed in, how dare you shout like that? You've ruined my mood. Someone slap her. At that moment, 2 guards rushed in from outside, restraining the maid who had barged in. They began to slap her face. The sound echoing in the room, and her face turned red immediately after a few strikes. After 5 or 6 slaps, Princess Xianyi waved her hand, signaling the guards to step back, and calmly addressed the maid as if nothing had happened. Now, tell me, what is it? The maid showed no signs of resentment, bowing her head as she replied, Your Highness, I went to serve Lady Yang today, but I knocked on the door for a long time, and there was no response. I thought something might have happened, so I came to report to you. In my urgency, I lost my composure, and I hope your Highness will forgive me. Since that's the case, let's go take a look together. Princess Xianyi followed the maid to Yang Yuhuan's residence. Although it wasn't a palace, it was still the place where the princess's husband lived, which could be considered a grand residence. Usually, there were only 2 guards at Yang Yuhuan's place. But now there were 7 or 8 guards and maids surrounding it, with one leading them being the guard captain. Seeing the princess arrive, they quickly bowed. Princess Xianyi waved her hand. Get up. Captain Zhao, what is the situation now? Captain Zhao replied, Your Highness, there is still no response from inside. We have checked the doors and windows, and they are all locked from the inside. I think we should break the door immediately to avoid any delays. All right, break the door now. With Princess Xianyi's consent, Captain Zhao immediately led his men to force the door. Although it was just a wooden bolt, it was at least as thick as a child's arm, and it wouldn't be easy for an ordinary person to break it. However, Captain Zhao was quite skilled. With a swift kick, the bolt broke with a loud crack. After the door was burst open, Princess Xianyi immediately led her maids into the room, but was left dumbfounded upon entering. There was no one inside. The room was empty. Princess Xianyi quickly instructed her maids to search the room, but still found nothing. She then asked Commander Zhao to bring people in to help search, but the room was thoroughly checked, and there was still no sign of anyone. Everything in the house was normal, and the door bolt was locked from the inside, making it impossible for Yang Yuhuan to have sneaked out. Although it was hard to believe, the fact remained that Yang Yuhuan had vanished into thin air. Princess Xianyi was momentarily flustered, but fortunately, Commander Zhao was more astute and immediately ordered to keep the situation under wraps. He also quickly sent someone to summon Prince Yang Hui back. When Yang Hui returned and listened to the guard's report, he also inspected the scene, but unfortunately, he could not discern any clues. All they knew was that Yang Yuhuan had disappeared from a sealed room. Princess Xianyi looked at Yang Hui and said, What should we do? The wedding is approaching, and the bride is missing. It must be the work of the Yang family. You need to take people and arrest them now. Yang Hui replied, There is currently no evidence. We cannot act rashly. I will arrange for people to control the Yang family first. As for this matter, it cannot be kept under wraps. We must report it to His Majesty immediately and request a lockdown of the entire city to interrogate suspicious individuals. You should go to the palace to inform our mother about this situation and see if she has any instructions. It must be said that Yang Hui was indeed a clever and capable person. His thinking was relatively clear, and his decisions were quite decisive. Unfortunately, the opponent he faced was not on the same level as him. Inside the Xinqing Hall, Li Longji sat high at the desk, with Yang Hui standing at the lower position. Yang Hui said, I have searched the prince's residence thoroughly, but found no trace. The person went missing last night, and they likely haven't left the city yet. If we tighten the lockdown and conduct thorough inspections, we should be able to find something. Li Longji slammed the table and said, Bold. I never expected such a thing to happen under the emperor's feet. Summon Qin Xuanli to see me. In a moment, a handsome general clad in armor entered the hall. He was unique in the entire capital, as no one else could enter the emperor's presence armed, which demonstrated the emperor's trust in him. This person was General Qin Xuanli, the commander of the capital's imperial guards. Qin Xuanli saluted Li Longji, who waved his hand and said, No need for formalities. I hereby command you to immediately seal the 4 gates and investigate the whereabouts of a person. Yang Hui will assist you. Remember to keep the search discreet and not to make it public. Chun Xuanli and Yang Hui accepted the order and left. While Li Longji turned to Gao Lishir and said, "You arranged for the Wanjizi to investigate this matter secretly." The Wanjizi originated from the Baijizi established by Li Shimin, which was his personal guard before he ascended the throne. After he became emperor, it evolved into a secret guard for special missions. By the time it reached Li Ji, it was renamed Qianjizi due to personnel expansion, and when it reached Li Longji's uncle, Emperor Zhongzong Li Xian, it was further expanded and renamed Wanjizi. Just as Gao Lishir was about to respond and leave, a eunuch outside announced, "Consort Wu and Princess Xiani request an audience." Seeing Li Longji nod, Gao Lishir called out, "Announce them." Consort Wu and Princess Xiani entered as summoned. After greeting him, Consort Wu stepped forward to massage Li Longji's shoulders, while Princess Xiani obediently stood to the side. Li Longji spoke first. "You arrived just in time. The prince just reported that Yang Yuhuan is missing. Due to the urgency of the situation, I didn't have a chance to ask why she went missing from the prince's residence." Wu Huifei subtly signaled to Princess Xiani, who responded, "This matter is all my fault. I asked for your punishment, father. It's fine, I won't blame you. Speak freely. Several days ago, I received a secret letter stating that the daughter of the Yang family actually ran away from her marriage. I went to the Yang family to confront them. And to my surprise, it turned out to be true. Not wanting to damage the royal family's reputation, I kept it a secret. But to avoid further complications before the wedding, I allowed Yang Yuhuan to stay at the prince's residence. That's how last night's incident occurred." Li Longji's face showed anger. "I didn't expect someone from the Yang family to be so ungrateful. Do you know why she ran away?" Princess Xiani replied. "Yang Yuhuan said she didn't want to be a caged bird, but I suspect she must have been secretly involved with someone." "What? Are you saying that the daughter of the Yang family is no longer pure? How can she still marry Zhao? I had a midwife check. She is still pure." Before Li Longji could respond, Wu Huifei interjected, "What does purity matter? Once unfaithful, always untrustworthy. Even if such a woman is found, she is not worthy of my Zhaoer. Your Majesty, don't you think?" Li Longji felt that the conversation was being steered in a direction he didn't like. In the Tang dynasty, it was not uncommon for someone to have feelings for another before marriage, and even if someone wasn't pure before marriage, it shouldn't be a big deal. However, Wu Huifei was fixating on this issue, clearly with ulterior motives. Li Longji changed the subject. "General Gao, you must quickly investigate this matter." He then turned to Wu Huifei and said, "I am aware of this issue now. You may leave first. And we will discuss it again after General Gao finds out the truth or Chun Xinsha retrieves Yang Yuhuan." With the emperor having spoken, Wu Huifei and Princess Xiani had no choice but to take their leave. Chapter 201. Disappearing without a trace after leaving Xingqing Palace, Princess Xiani said, "Mother, it seems that arranging another marriage for my brother will not work out." Wu Huifei appeared confident. "Even if it doesn't work out, we must make it happen. You go find a new candidate. I will think of a way to ensure that wretched girl never returns." Princess Xiani nodded in agreement and hurriedly left the palace. In the back garden of Xingqing Palace, in a pavilion, Wu Huifei sat, while Li Linfu stood beside her. Wu Huifei began. "This is how it is. I don't want that Yang family's wretched girl to return. Li Xiang, do you know what to do?" Li Linfu bowed and replied, "I understand. I will arrange for someone to handle it." After Li Linfu stood up to leave, Wu Huifei stopped him. "Wait, I have a few more things to instruct. Please, go ahead. What's the status on the matter of Zhaoer being established as the crown prince? Why has there been no movement lately? Li Xiang, you need to put in more effort." Li Linfu was also filled with frustration. With the crown prince being deposed, everyone believed that the favored son of Wu Huifei, Prince Shou, Li Zhao, would undoubtedly be the new crown prince. Of course, Li Linfu thought so too, which is why he directly supported Li Zhao's ascension to the position. But who knew the emperor would refuse to agree? Li Linfu, through the clues provided by his contacts in the palace and his own contemplation, realized he had made a grave mistake. The emperor would absolutely not appoint Li Zhao as the crown prince. The reason was quite simple. The Li family had only just managed to snatch the throne back from the Wu family. So how could they possibly install another descendant of the Wu family as the crown prince? However, now that Consort Wu brought up this matter, Li Linfu could only respond ambiguously. "Rest assured, consort, I will do my utmost to promote this matter, but His Majesty has just rejected the proposal for an heir. So we must wait a while before revisiting this old issue. I understand, but I hope you are not just being perfunctory. You must realize we are in the same boat. If this matter fails, do not blame me." Li Linfu could never allow himself to be manipulated. At this moment, he was already pondering how to deal with Consort Wu, yet he still respectfully replied, "I understand. Please rest assured, consort. I will take my leave now." In Chang'an, the atmosphere was tense. All gates were sealed, and entry and exit were strictly scrutinized. The Yang family and those associated with them were also under lockdown and investigation. The guards responsible for nighttime patrols were questioned one by one. Naturally, everyone in the prince consort's residence was interrogated as well. After a day of searching and questioning, Chun Xuanli and Yang Hui were utterly exhausted, but what tired them more was the fact that they had found nothing. Yang Yuhuan seemed to have evaporated from the world. All they knew was that she had disappeared the previous night, but beyond that, there were no leads. Despite this, they had no choice but to return and report. On the other hand, Gao Lishir had already thoroughly investigated the matter of Yang Yuhuan's elopement. Two groups of reporting personnel met outside the Xingqing Palace and together informed Li Longji of their progress. Chun Xuanli, being straightforward, reported honestly, Your Majesty, I have found nothing today. I ask for your punishment. Yang Hui, being more tactful, quickly added, I, along with General Chun, have inquired about the people in the prince consort's residence and the Yang family. According to the accounts from the Yang family members, there is nothing suspicious. This does not seem to be the work of the Yang family. As for the prince consort's residence, they were completely unaware during Yang Yuhuan's disappearance, not even noticing anything unusual. I bear some responsibility for this oversight and humbly request your punishment. Li Longji felt increasingly that this matter was not simple. If Yang Yuhuan's disappearance was indeed man-made, then the method was too clever. At this moment, he could not fully blame the two men, so he comforted them. There is no need to be overly self-reproachful. As long as she is still in Chang'an, she will eventually leave the city. Continue to keep the gates sealed and scrutinize entry and exit. Gao General, do you have any findings? Gao Lisha replied, Your Majesty, I have discovered that a daughter of the Yang family recently fled to Shu, and it was Yang Xuanjia who personally went to bring her back. This young lady's lover in Shu is. Gao Lisha's expression was somewhat strange, but he did not keep it a secret. After a brief pause, he continued, It is Zhang Xiaochuan, the new head of the Ministry of Works. Li Longji exclaimed, What? It is this person? This individual possesses mysterious abilities, if he is involved. It is understandable that things are shrouded in mystery. Have you been able to continue the investigation? Gao Lisha responded, I have arranged for 1,000 riders to secretly monitor Zhang Xiaochuan's residence. No one can enter or leave without our eyes on them. However, our inquiries around the residence have revealed no suspicious activity. Only Zhang Xiaochuan and his few servants have been seen coming and going. Have you entered the residence to search? Gao Lisha replied, I am here to request permission to search the residence. Li Longji said, Granted, bring Zhang Xiaochuan to see me. At Li Linfu's residence, Li Linfu's subordinate, Luo Shishir, was reporting, Your Majesty, my men have dispersed, and we have searched through the major inns and restaurants, but we have not found any suspicious individuals. He added, It's normal not to find anything. This case is quite complicated. As he spoke, a close attendant of Li Linfu came in to whisper a few words to him before hurriedly leaving. Li Linfu looked at Luo Shishir and said, The palace has sent news that they haven't found any leads either. Keep a close watch on the prince's residence and the Yang family. We just need to ensure she doesn't return. Let others worry about finding her. Luo Shishir bowed in agreement. Zhang Xiaochuan was comfortably lounging in a chair, still savoring the sensation of Yang Yuhuan's lips, and couldn't help but marvel at her beauty, truly deserving of a place among the 4 great beauties in history. What a captivating being. Unfortunately, after just one kiss last night, she had become shy. If you count Yang Yuhuan, Shang Wanyao, and Tenchong princesses, that's a solid 12 beauties. He couldn't wait to marry them all and indulge without restraint. Just then, Luo Xiaohu arrived. Erlang, our residence is being watched. It's likely people from the local authority. They may be hiding well, but they can't escape my eyes. Back in the time of the Empress, those people wouldn't have been worthy to serve me, yet now they dare to keep an eye on us. Zhang Xiaochuan cooperatively remarked. Who doesn't know your plum blossom guards have been dominant for ages? Since someone is watching, it's likely the palace people will soon arrive. If I enter the palace, keep an eye out for my signal. I don't want to meet my end here. Luo Xiaohu patted his chest and said, Erlang, don't worry, just give the order, and even though we're only a dozen strong, storming the palace will be a piece of cake. We can come and go as we please. Zhang Xiaochuan felt reassured, then I'll rest easy. At that moment, hurried footsteps were heard as Gao Lisha entered the residence with a group of guards. Zhang Xiaochuan quickly went up to him, feigning fear, and asked, Gao Neishi, what is the meaning of this? Why have you brought a troop of soldiers to my residence? Since there was no evidence proving that Zhang Xiaochuan had taken Yang Yuhuan. Gao Lisha spoke politely, some issues have arisen, and you are involved, so I am here for a routine check. I hope you won't take offense. Zhang Xiaochuan, pretending to be confused, asked, I'm not aware of any issues. Gao Lisha did not respond, but instead said, Please stay calm, and do not make things difficult for us. Search. With Gao Lisha's command, the guards dispersed. Zhang Xiaochuan engaged in idle chatter with Gao Lisha. But the old eunuch was tight-lipped and revealed nothing useful. Zhang Xiaochuan maintained an air of ignorance, playing along. After a while, the scattered guards returned. But they had found nothing. Gao Lisha said, Zhang Zhusheng, let us head to the palace. As Zhang Xiaochuan entered the Xingqing palace, the formalities had barely begun when Li Longji bellowed, Zhang Xiaochuan, where is Yang Yuhuan? Why not confess honestly? Zhang Xiaochuan was startled by this sudden question and instinctively replied, Yang Yuhuan. But as soon as the words left his mouth, he realized he had made a mistake. This was bad. The emperor was trying to trick him. Although he hadn't said anything out loud, his instinctive response would certainly be noticed by the emperor and his trusted aide. They were all sharp individuals. And this would effectively confirm that Yang Yuhuan's disappearance was related to him. However, he couldn't hesitate. He needed to divert the conversation immediately. But saying who Yang Yuhuan was would definitely not work, as this was clearly a trap indicating they knew about his connection with her. It was best to play dumb. In a flash, after a brief pause, he continued, What's wrong with Yang Yuhuan? The emperor, with a barely perceptible smirk of success, maintained a stern expression and continued, You dare to play dumb? Confess honestly, and perhaps I will show leniency. Even a 3-year-old wouldn't believe that. He recalled his previous life when he had just entered the workplace and his boss had said to him, Speak honestly. I like honest employees. As a result, he foolishly shared everything, leading to being ostracized by colleagues and suppressed by superiors. Thus, Zhang Xiaochuan's first lesson in the workplace was, don't acknowledge or admit anything. Honesty can lead to disaster. So now, they were trying to intimidate him? No way. Zhang Xiaochuan knelt down, looking terrified, and said, I truly do not know what your majesty is referring to. Don't know? Are you really not afraid for your life? Guards, your majesty, I would not mind dying. But I hope your majesty will clarify what crime I have committed. The emperor felt helpless. It was unlikely he would actually kill Zhang Xiaochuan. However, if he didn't take serious action, the young man would keep dodging the issue, which was not a solution either. Moreover, if he explained the situation now, it would put him at a disadvantage. Since the young man was being evasive, it was better to deal with him physically first. So he commanded, guards, drag him out and give him 20 strikes. As soon as the emperor's command was issued, before the guards could rush in, Zhang Xiaochuan sprang to his feet, pointing at the emperor with one hand while pressing a signal transmitter on his body with the other, and shouted, Your Majesty, as a ruler, do you truly wish to punish without teaching? Zhang Xiaochuan's shout may not have been particularly imposing, but it caught the emperor off guard. In the Tang dynasty, it was not uncommon for emperors to be confronted in such a manner. If it were after the Yuan dynasty, anyone daring to point at the emperor would surely face death. Looking at Zhang Xiaochuan's frail figure, for some reason, the emperor felt a chill run down his back. Upon reflection, he realized he might have gone a bit too far. However, yielding to a mere finger pointed at him, was he really going to lose face? Seeing the emperor's grim expression, Zhang Xiaochuan looked up to the sky, realizing he had to take drastic measures. He thought about pressing the signal transmitter in his hand. Once he did, the hidden guards outside the palace would rush in with automatic rifles and rocket launchers, and helicopters would arrive to provide support in a few minutes. At that point, there would be no room for negotiation. Sigh, he really didn't want to take this step. Being a good emperor was exhausting. And being a bad emperor was equally tiring. After all emperors had short lives. Forget it, let's eliminate Li Tang first, and then support others to rise. Zhang Xiaochuan gritted his teeth, his fingertips already touching the signal transmitter. An urgent military report. A loud call broke the tense atmosphere that felt like it was about to explode at any moment. Li Longji happened to have an opportunity, and he gave a glance to Gao Lishur, who understood immediately. He reached out to stop the guards coming in and ordered them to retreat, then loudly called for the messenger to enter the hall. At this moment, Zhang Xiaochuan's palms were already sweaty. That emperor really scared me. If there's a rebellion, how many people would die? I want to forget this matter concerning Li Longji. The messenger, panting heavily, said, Your Majesty, the enemy has captured Sherbao City and killed all the military and civilians inside. This is the battle report. Li Longji felt a buzzing in his head. What? Sherbao City has fallen? At this time, Gao Lishur had already placed the battle report on Li Longji's desk. After reading it, Li Longji's expression turned grim, and he couldn't help but curse. That useless guy Jieyun has let me down. From these few words, Zhang Xiaochuan had already guessed what was happening. This was quite a significant event in the history of the prosperous Tang dynasty. It is said that the enemy captured Sherbao City from the Tang. And Li Longji was furious, stripping Gai Jieyun of his official cap and ordering Huangfu Weiming to reclaim the lost territory, as Shanzhou, where Sherbao City is located, has basically fallen. As for what would happen next, it was uncertain. After all, my butterfly wings are a bit too big. However, with this interruption, the emperor had lost the mood to continue his confrontation with Zhang Xiaochuan. After instructing someone to gather the ministers of the 3 provinces and the heads of the 6 ministries for a meeting, he openly revealed the matter of Yang Yuhuan's disappearance. Li Longji said, The matter of Yang Yuhuan's disappearance is roughly this. Since she went to Shu to see you last time, it is closely related to you. Zhang Xiaochuan, don't think that I cannot take action against you without evidence. If you confess honestly, perhaps I will spare your life. Zhang Xiaochuan couldn't help but scoff inwardly. Even at this time, he still wanted to trick me. He argued, I admit that I had a close friendship with Yang Yuhuan before, but we are just ordinary friends, and our relationship is purely platonic, with no inappropriate actions. After she left Shu, she has had no contact with me, so Yang Yuhuan's disappearance has nothing to do with me. Zhang Xiaochuan's words had no loopholes, as they matched the findings. He was confident that no evidence could be found regarding this matter. Suddenly, Li Longji began to recite poetry, searching for him among the crowd 1,000 times. Suddenly turning back, that person is there, in the dim light. After reciting, he looked at Zhang Xiaochuan. Can ordinary friends write such poetry? Did an ordinary friend set off fireworks all night? Li Longji paused for a moment and suddenly asked, What are fireworks? Are they really as beautiful as the rumors say? After asking, Li Longji realized he had gone off topic and forcefully brought the conversation back. Do you dare still say you are just ordinary friends? Zhang Xiaochuan felt he couldn't answer that. So he changed the subject. Your Majesty, these fireworks are very beautiful. I have some more, and I will send them to the palace for you to enjoy. They can only be seen when lit at night. Clearly, the fireworks were more important than a daughter-in-law running away, and Li Longji's attention was successfully diverted. That works. Then you go back and get them and demonstrate them for me tonight. After speaking, I suddenly realized that I was mistaken. I wasn't asking about Yang Yuhuan. I hurriedly added, the matter of Yang Yuhuan is not over. I want a response by tonight. Remember, my face is not something to be easily disregarded. Chapter 203, Report. There are monsters. Gao Lishur was still seeing Zhang Xiaochuan out of the palace. Zhang Xiaochuan had basically figured out this routine by now. If Gao Lishir had something to convey, he would escort him. Thus, Zhang Xiaochuan skillfully slipped a stack of vouchers to Gao Lishir. Gao Lishir, not being pretentious, tucked the vouchers into his sleeve and said, "Does Master Zhang understand the deeper meaning of the last sentence? Please enlighten me, High Internal Minister." Gao Lishir replied gently, "Some matters, once the emperor has made up his mind, evidence becomes irrelevant. However, if you are willing to pay a sufficient price, this matter can also be overlooked." Zhang Xiaochuan still didn't quite understand, so he asked, "What is this price?" "It is said that Master Zhang can pierce through armor with a single finger, known as the heavenly punishment. I wonder if this heavenly punishment can be used by the emperor?" Zhang Xiaochuan was taken aback. Although it wasn't surprising that the emperor could investigate such matters, being able to see through to the essence and guess that this might be some kind of weapon was no small feat. Zhang Xiaochuan had always believed that ancient people were very clever, especially those from our central plains, who were the cream of the crop among the wise. Thus, technology and culture had always been far ahead. As for why they later fell behind, that would be a question for the Qing dynasty, which closed its doors to the world, idolized foreign things, and engaged in literary inquisition. Wasn't each of these a self-destructive act? I digress. Now that Li Longji had begun to suspect that what I possessed was not any heavenly punishment, he would certainly require an explanation. No wonder he was using both threats and inducements to get me to acknowledge this matter. It turned out the goal was here. Fortunately, I was already prepared. So I said, "In that case, I will not disappoint your majesty. I will return to prepare and await the imperial edict." Upon hearing Gao Lishir's words, Zhang Xiaochuan decided to present the Mauser manual rifle he had prepared in advance to Li Longji. On the way back to his residence, he thought about how to bring it out without making the emperor feel that he had it right now, but hadn't offered it to him. However, as soon as he returned to the residence, he heard Luo Xiaohu say that the carriage had arrived but had encountered some issues and was currently stuck at the city gate, not being allowed to enter. Zhang Xiaochuan hurriedly followed Luo Xiaohu toward the city gate. Inside Xingqing Palace, Li Longji was holding a small court meeting with officials from the 3 provinces and heads of the 6 ministries. "Everyone, please share your thoughts. How should we respond to the invasion of Shanzhou by the Tubo?" Although Li Longji asked for their strategies, he was actually inquiring about how to fight, as our great Tang had never backed down in foreign wars. Niu Xinka said, "Your Majesty, I am willing to lead the troops into battle and will surely drive the Tubo people back to the snowy plains." Li Longji replied, "Your courage is commendable, but I have heard that you left behind hidden ailments from your early battles, and I truly cannot bear to send you." Li Linfu, following his usual habit, began to guess who the emperor wanted to send. Suddenly, he remembered that the emperor had casually praised Huangfu Weiming's military talent some time ago. Just then, the emperor also looked at Li Linfu, so he said, "I believe Huangfu Weiming is capable of taking on this important task." Sure enough, Li Longji nodded and said, "Huangfu Weiming is indeed impressive. I wonder if anyone else has suggestions?" It was clear that the emperor was merely being polite and had already decided to use a certain individual. Those in high positions were not foolish, so they all chimed in to agree. Just as Li Longji was about to make a decision, a messenger rushed in shouting, "Urgent military report. A monster is attacking." Li Longji exchanged glances with Gao Lishir, who shouted, "Announce." Naturally, Li Longji did not believe there was any monster, and his attitude towards the messenger was not good. He said with some anger, "What monster? Speak in detail. If I find out you are speaking nonsense, I will have you executed immediately." Hearing this, the messenger was terrified and knelt down, his face pale, saying, "Your Majesty, just a moment ago, the soldiers at Chunming Gate discovered a black, snake-like creature advancing towards the city gate at an extremely fast speed. It is estimated that it has already reached Chunming Gate." Upon hearing this report, Li Longji felt insulted, shouting, "Nonsense! Where did this snake monster come from? Cut him down." The messenger immediately prostrated himself, saying, "Your Majesty, the creature moves while exhaling clouds and mist. I assure you I am not lying. My life is insignificant, but I implore your Majesty to prepare for action." After this, he kept knocking his head on the ground. Seeing his earnest words, Li Longji, realizing he couldn't take this lightly, said, "Take him down for now and investigate further." As soon as Li Longji finished speaking, another messenger arrived to report, and he was quickly called over. The new messenger said, "Your Majesty, we have achieved a great victory. That iron monster has been subdued and is currently being held at the city gate, and we are figuring out how to bring it in." Li Longji was astonished and excitedly asked, "What? There really is a monster, and it has been captured?" The messenger replied, "Yes, Your Majesty. What does the monster look like?" To which the messenger responded, "From a distance, it looks like a long snake, but in reality, it is composed of segments. The creature is square-shaped, with a square face. Its eyes located beneath the face, and it exhales from its belly, releasing black smoke each time. Its legs resemble wheels, looking very strange." This explanation left Li Longji bewildered. What on earth was this? He then asked, "Is it dangerous?" The messenger thought for a moment and replied, "It should not be dangerous." With just a wave of our hands, the creature stopped moving and seemed very docile. Li Longji thought, since it was not dangerous, he wanted to go see it himself. Hearing descriptions alone did not help his imagination. So he said, "Since it is not dangerous, I shall go to the city gate to take a look. Would you all like to accompany me?" Li Linfu, who always prioritized caution, quickly advised against it, saying, "Your Majesty, we are still uncertain about what this is. You must not put yourself in danger. However, Li Longji was quite determined. No need for further persuasion. Who wishes to accompany me? The ministers, well aware of Li Longji's temperament, replied in unison, we are willing to go with your majesty. Just as Li Longji hurried to Chunming Gate. Before he could see the monster, he encountered Zhang Xiaochuan, who was furious and shouting, you bunch of foolish soldiers. How many times do I have to say this? This is a truck, a large truck for transporting goods, not some ridiculous monster. The city guard officer at Chunming Gate argued vehemently, stop talking nonsense. We have so many brothers here, and the citizens coming and going can see clearly that this is clearly a steel monster. He pointed at the two headlights and said, look, these are its eyes. Then he pointed at the ventilation grid in front and said, and this is its nose. Next, he pointed at the windshield and exclaimed, see, this monster's mouth is right above its nose, and it has already swallowed 2 people who haven't been digested yet. Zhang Xiaochuan was truly astonished by this person's imagination. The most crucial part was that the people around him were nodding in agreement, continuously affirming that the officer was right. A wave of helplessness surged over him. It felt futile to shout explanations, but he couldn't remain silent either, so he softened his tone and said, those 2 people are inside. One is the driver and the other is the guard. Believe me, this vehicle is carrying something to be presented to His Majesty, truly. The officer replied, I don't believe it. This monster has already been surrounded by the city guards and will be escorted to the imperial city to present the achievements. Present your nonsense. You stubborn fool, will you let it pass or not? Not letting it pass. Fine. Zhang Xiaochuan pointed at the officer and said, I'll go find His Majesty. You wait here. Just as he turned to leave, he locked eyes with someone. Your Majesty. Are you looking for me? Chapter 204. The yellow flag sedan Li Longji met Zhang Xiaochuan's gaze, thinking about how this sharp-tongued fellow had repeatedly put him in a tough spot. But now a big soldier was driving him crazy, and he couldn't help but chuckle. Ha ha, I didn't expect Chief Zhang to also have moments of struggle. Zhang Xiaochuan quickly bowed. Your humble servant greets your majesty. The soldiers and citizens behind immediately knelt down in unison, shouting, long live your majesty. Zhang Xiaochuan had no choice but to kneel and bow as well. Li Longji promptly waved his hand, signaling them to rise. He said to the officer, let them disperse. Turning to Zhang Xiaochuan, he added, come, introduce this monster to me. Huh? Curse you, you clueless ancient fools. He thought. But he forced a smile on his face and replied, yes. Zhang Xiaochuan then strode forward, cursing at the departing soldiers, kicking a few who were moving too slowly. He was simply too frustrated. These foolish soldiers had scared his driver to death. Once the soldiers had retreated, Zhang Xiaochuan introduced to Li Longji, your majesty. This is the rumored steel monster that emits black smoke. In fact, it is a type of vehicle called a truck. One truck can carry the equivalent of 50 to 100 horse-drawn carts, and it can be operated by just one person, moving swiftly, comparable to a galloping horse. It can travel from Shu to here in less than a day. Although Li Longji had already gathered some information, Zhang Xiaochuan's introduction still made him feel it was remarkable. Seeing such a colossal object in person, he could hardly imagine how one person could make it move. So, Li Longji asked, can we make this truck move now? Of course. After speaking, Zhang Xiaochuan made a forward gesture to the driver. He picked up the sound of the truck starting, accompanied by the hissing of exhaust fumes and the roar of the engine. Due to the purity of the gasoline, there was an excessive amount of smoke, enveloping half of the vehicle. The truck slowly moved forward with the rumbling sound. Li Longji was taken aback. When he realized that his expression of surprise might harm his image, he quickly adjusted his demeanor and glanced at the ministers next to him, who looked even more astonished than he was. He thought to himself, if I hadn't already known about automobiles, I might have considered this a monster as well. Li Longji looked at the unusually calm Zhang Xiaochuan and asked, can I ride in this truck? Zhang Xiaochuan replied, your majesty, you can, but this is a cargo vehicle, and it may not be comfortable inside. I have specially developed a model for your majesty as a personal vehicle. How about we go to the palace training ground for a demonstration? Li Longji nodded in agreement and led the ministers, who were still recovering from their shock, back to the palace, while Zhang Xiaochuan followed in the truck. Along the way, crowds lined the streets, pointing and discussing. The scene was comparable to the attention received during the emperor's ceremonial outings. To avoid panic, the emperor even instructed the local government to issue a public announcement for reassurance. Li Longji had initially convened a small court meeting at Xiqing Palace, but now made a special trip to the training ground behind the Daming Palace for the demonstration. Due to the presence of specific attendants guiding Zhang Xiaochuan's vehicle, they arrived at the training ground almost simultaneously. Instead of going to the high platform to take his seat, Li Longji approached the truck, chatting with the ministers while watching Zhang Xiaochuan direct the unloading process. Li Linfu remarked, your majesty, previously the soldiers reported a monster, and I didn't pay much attention. After seeing this, I truly feel it's not an exaggeration to call it a monster. Li Longji nodded, saying, indeed. This massive object can really be moved by just one person. It's incredible. Niu Xinka commented, how much grain can this truck carry? It's much more efficient than a horse-drawn cart. Using this for transporting supplies would greatly enhance military operations. Li Longji smiled and said, not only that, but everyday goods can also be transported with this. I can hardly imagine what that would look like. Li Linfu immediately chimed in, praising, with such a miraculous object appearing. It is truly a testament to your majesty's great achievements, which have inspired the heavens. Our wise emperor brings blessings to the people. This was quite a stretch to attribute to Li Longji, but the emperor enjoyed the flattery nonetheless. Li Longji's eyes crinkled into a crescent shape with a smile. While he modestly replied, "This is all due to the wisdom of my subjects. How could I take credit?" The ministers, quick to catch the underlying tone, immediately followed up with more flattery. "Your Majesty's great achievements have inspired the heavens, resulting in divine miracles and the creation of this miraculous vehicle, which is a great fortune for the nation and a blessing for the people." The last exclamation came from Zhang Xiaochuan, who had just finished unloading and approached to report to Li Longji, coincidentally catching the ministers in their enthusiastic flattery. He quickly tried to maintain his composure, but he was taken aback by the length and synchronization of their remarks, which seemed rehearsed, leading to an awkward moment for him. However, at this moment, no one would challenge him. Zhang Xiaochuan quickly changed the subject. "Your Majesty, the vehicle suitable for your use is already prepared. Please take a look." Li Longji raised his eyes and saw a metal object placed in the training ground. Although it was much smaller and had a significantly different shape, the structure of the head was basically the same. Thus, Li Longji asked in confusion, "Is this also a vehicle?" "Indeed, strictly speaking, this is called a carriage. Similar to a palanquin," Zhang Xiaochuan replied. Li Longji touched the streamlined body and saw the genuine leather interior, feeling an unexplainable fondness. Just as he was about to get in, Zhang Xiaochuan said, "Your Majesty, if you ride this vehicle, it will be your imperial mount. I dare to call it the royal ride. However, such a marvelous object would surely attract the admiration of officials, commoners, and merchants alike. To let them appreciate your Majesty, I have named this vehicle Huanqi, which sounds like royal ride, meaning yellow flag in reference to its color. The full name is Huanqi carriage, so that everyone who rides this type of vehicle can feel the great grace of the emperor." Upon hearing this, Zhang Xiaochuan adjusted his robe sleeves, lowered himself in a bow, and cried out, "Please, your Majesty, bestow a name upon this vehicle." Li Longji was very pleased, especially with the phrase that everyone can feel the emperor's great grace. It truly touched his heart. He waved his hand generously. "Very well. This vehicle shall henceforth be called the Huanqi carriage. Thank you, your Majesty, for bestowing a name. Please, your Majesty, step into the carriage." After expressing his gratitude, Zhang Xiaochuan immediately opened the door and invited Li Longji to get in. This was a four-seater small carriage, with Li Longji sitting in the back and the driver in the front. After Li Longji was seated, Zhang Xiaochuan got into the passenger seat. Just as Zhang Xiaochuan was about to ask Li Longji if he could start driving, Li Linfu pointed at Zhang Xiaochuan inside the carriage and exclaimed, "Zhang Xiaochuan, how dare you ride together with His Majesty and sit at the same level? This is overstepping, a great disrespect." He then turned to Li Longji. "I request to punish Zhang Xiaochuan for his transgression." Chapter 205. Seeking a reward. Li Linfu's accusation against Zhang Xiaochuan was a serious offense that could lead to execution. However, Li Longji was not a foolish emperor, and moreover, he was in high spirits, ready to enjoy the experience of riding in the vehicle. Thus, he felt a slight displeasure at Li Linfu's actions. Li Longji said, "No matter. Let us take a ride first. We can discuss what you said later." Zhang Xiaochuan initially thought the emperor would reprimand Li Linfu for dampening the mood, but unexpectedly, the discussion was postponed. This implied that the emperor did not oppose Li Linfu's accusation of overstepping, which suggested that he was not satisfied with the seating arrangement. Zhang Xiaochuan realized he needed to think of a way to address this. Inside the carriage, Li Longji observed the scenery flying by at great speed. Yet the ride was incredibly smooth, a completely new experience for him. If a horse-drawn carriage were to go this fast, it would likely jolt the passengers violently. After circling the training ground twice, the carriage came to a steady stop at its original position, and Li Longji got out feeling very pleased. "Zhang Aiqing, this Huanqi carriage is excellent. Not only is it fast, but it is also very stable, with no feeling of bumps at all." Li Linfu, purely unhappy about Zhang Xiaochuan's favor with the emperor, felt that the emperor's trust and appreciation should belong solely to him. If anyone else received recognition that surpassed his own, that person could only meet a dire fate. Li Linfu is now sparing no effort to discredit Zhang Xiaochuan, bringing up old matters. "Your Majesty, although this carriage is good, the seating design is extremely unreasonable, revealing a sense of contempt for imperial authority." "Enough." Li Longji interrupted Li Linfu, then said, "Although what you say has some exaggeration, there is a point to it." Zhang Xiaochuan looked confused, not understanding what Li Longji meant, and stared blankly. Li Longji continued, "The interior space of this carriage is too small. If the back seat could be extended by a couple of zhang, with half for seating and half as a table, it would allow for enjoying the scenery together and having drinks and discussions with friends." As expected of an emperor, his thinking was very clear and purely focused on enjoyment. Li Longji then added, "And also, the driver's position should be separated from the back." Zhang Xiaochuan pondered Li Longji's request and visualized the shape of the carriage. Suddenly, he jumped up as if jolted. "Wow, it's like a stretched Lincoln." Li Longji glared. "What?" "Nothing, Your Majesty, you are truly professional." At this moment, other officials were eager to try it out, and the emperor noticed their thoughts. He waved his hand. "All of you, go ahead and experience it." However, the officials did not receive the same treatment as the emperor. Each one crowded into the carriage, making it feel tightly packed. Zhang Xiaochuan covered his face, realizing that this was a group of third-rank officials, and if one didn't know better, one might think they were refugees. At this moment, Zhang Xiaochuan felt quite frustrated. as it resembled a situation in later times when one presents a seemingly unbeatable proposal to a boss, only to be criticized thoroughly. Just when Zhang Xiaochuan was feeling down, Li Longji's voice came. This carriage you made is very good. I will remember your great contribution. But you must understand the saying that a tree that stands out will be blown down by the wind. Zhang Xiaochuan cursed inwardly, thinking that this old fellow was clearly trying to avoid rewarding him while talking a lot of nonsense, obviously trying to manipulate him with empty promises. So he said, Your Majesty is wise, but I also have some trivial insights. Oh, what insights? Among the officials, there are many skilled in governance, many brave and capable, and many seasoned and shrewd. But why is it that none have created something like what I have? It is precisely because I am unconventional and have imaginative thoughts that I acquired this miraculous skill to create such an extraordinary item. Li Longji nodded repeatedly at his words. And Zhang Xiaochuan continued, I am young and foolish, not understanding the sentiments of home and country or the spirit of dedication. My teachings emphasize practicality. What one puts in should yield a return. I wonder if your Majesty agrees. Li Longji was secretly furious with Zhang Xiaochuan. This kid's words implied that if he didn't give some benefits, he would end up with this carriage without any effort. Wouldn't that be taking advantage without working for it? Moreover, this young man is also hinting at the bargaining chip for exchanging the matter of Yang Yuhuan. If there is no reward for the automobile, it seems that obtaining the divine object would be impossible. At such a young age, he is so calculating. I really can't imagine how his mind works. Unfortunately, the divine object is too important and must be obtained at all costs. He then said, At your young age, you've already entered the officialdom. If you were to be promoted, you would rank among the 5th grade, already a significant minister of the state, which might not be appropriate. However, I also do not want capable individuals to feel disheartened. I have heard that you particularly like wasteland. How about I grant you tens of thousands of acres of land south of White Pagoda Lake? What do you think? Zhang Xiaochuan was startled. The emperor has done his homework well. This tens of thousands of acres of land is mostly wasteland, but I do need it. It seems I need to be more discreet in my dealings in Suzhou. However, since this land is being offered, I won't refuse it. So I knelt and expressed my gratitude. Thank you, Your Majesty. Long live the emperor. Li Longji replied, Get up. I will accept this automobile. The new type of automobile you mentioned should be manufactured as soon as possible. Once the ministers return, you may take your leave. Just then, Zhang Xiaochuan said, Your Majesty, the divine object has also been brought. What? Li Longji was taken aback. This young man has guts. If it were me, I wouldn't casually hand over such a divine object either. He then asked, What do you want? Zhang Xiaochuan was no fool. Having been through society's hardships in his past life, he understood the nuances. However, in his previous life, he was straightforward and unable to navigate subtlety. After crossing over, not only was his mind sharper, but he also grew thicker-skinned. So, Zhang Xiaochuan said, I asked for nothing. But I have heard that the daughter of the Yang family seems to have died suddenly from illness. Your Majesty should comfort the Yang family and choose a new princess soon, lest the wedding of the crown prince encounters issues. Upon hearing this, Li Longji was instantly furious. You rascal, you claim the disappearance of the Yang family's daughter has nothing to do with you, yet you are scheming against my royal family. Do you really think the dignity of the royal family can be casually discarded? I dare not, but I only wish to inform your Majesty that with this divine object, there will be no rivals for you within the realm. Look at it from another perspective. An unrelated woman can exchange for such a divine object. Your Majesty has profited. Li Longji thought about it and realized it made sense. However, I am the emperor. If you present something, there should be no conditions attached. But this young man has too many secrets, and I cannot afford to kill the goose that lays the golden eggs just yet. After considering, he decided to let it go, acknowledging it was youthful impulsiveness. Nevertheless, he must still maintain the dignity of an emperor. What do you mean by profit? Under heaven, all land is the king's, and all subjects are the king's ministers. Is it not natural for you to present this object to me? Seeing that the emperor was not angry, Zhang Xiaochuan knew this was a chance to find common ground. So he echoed, What your Majesty says is absolutely correct. It was my misstep. Please punish me. Enough. After all, I am clear about rewards and punishments. If I obtain this divine object, I naturally will not hold a minor girl against you, and there will be more rewards for you. Zhang Xiaochuan immediately prostrated. Your Majesty's grace is vast and illuminating through the ages. Li Longji nodded in satisfaction and instructed Zhang Xiaochuan to bring the divine object. Just then, the other ministers returned. Li Linfu looked at Li Longji, who was smiling like a blooming chrysanthemum, and inwardly cursed Zhang Xiaochuan. Sycophant. Chapter 206. The Emperor's target practice. Zhang Xiaochuan returned with several soldiers carrying 2 large wooden boxes. Li Longji and the ministers eagerly surrounded him, and Zhang Xiaochuan, not daring to be negligent, immediately opened the boxes. Inside one box were a row of oddly shaped wooden sticks, or rather, iron rods. The other box contained numerous copper cylinders, each the thickness of a finger and 4 fingers long, with pointed ends. Zhang Xiaochuan picked up one of the strange rods and introduced, Your Majesty, this is a divine weapon that can unleash heavenly punishment, called a rifle. He then took a finger-thick copper cylinder, loading it as he explained, This is a bullet. The outer part is copper, while the inside contains gunpowder. Li Longji listened in confusion, and Zhang Xiaochuan realized that explaining this was going to be complicated. So he said, Your Majesty, let me first demonstrate its power, and then I will explain this further. Li Longji nodded. All right, but how will you demonstrate it? As soon as he finished speaking, Zhang Xiaochuan, as if performing a magic trick, produced a device made of 2 circular tubes. Your Majesty, this is a telescope. If the target is too far to see clearly, you can use this to observe. Here's how it works. Please give it a try. He demonstrated its use and then handed it to Li Longji. Upon looking through it, Li Longji was astonished. This was indeed a remarkable item, especially useful in military operations. Zhang Xiaochuan instructed his men to set up targets at 300 paces. With one target every 100 paces, the furthest being 800 paces away. Li Longji asked, can we really hit a target at such a distance? Zhang Xiaochuan feigned mystery and replied, just wait and see. However, this gun does make quite a loud noise when fired. Li Longji was still puzzled about what kind of noise it could make when Zhang Xiaochuan gestured with his hand, and then a loud bang echoed, startling Li Longji so much that he didn't even see the target clearly. He shot Zhang Xiaochuan an angry glare, but Zhang Xiaochuan shrugged innocently, indicating that he had warned them beforehand. Everyone was somewhat bewildered. Was that just a sound? Niu Xinke, having a military background, was the first to voice his skepticism. What was that? A very special firecracker? Are you trying to scare the enemy to death with just noise? Zhang Xiaochuan was too lazy to explain and said, everyone, take a look at the target with the telescope. The other ministers naturally used the telescopes provided by Zhang Xiaochuan, and they quickly pointed them at the nearest target. Li Longji was the first to speak up. There's a small hole in the target. If it weren't for this device, I wouldn't have seen it clearly. Could it be that this is a bullet hole made by that rifle? Zhang Xiaochuan confirmed. Indeed, it is this rifle that pierced the target. Li Longji nodded. Not bad. Your Majesty, let us move on to target 2, which is 400 paces away. Good. Bang. With the prior experience, everyone was now more accepting of the gunshot, and quickly raised their telescopes to look at target 2. There was indeed a hole slightly smaller than a finger on it. Li Longji exclaimed excitedly, incredible. A sharpshooter in the army can only shoot accurately at 300 paces. Yet this person seems to hit a target at 400 paces effortlessly. Is it my illusion? Zhang Xiaochuan replied, Your Majesty, you did not see incorrectly. This rifle is very easy to operate, and the shooting distance is the same regardless of who uses it. Good. Let's continue. I really want to see how far it can shoot. Next was a target at 500 paces, and it barely hit the mark. Then at 600 paces, it missed completely. Hitting the target took 3 shots. Li Longji waved his hand to stop Zhang Xiaochuan from continuing the demonstration, saying, no need to shoot any further. I see this rifle can shoot farther, but unfortunately, my eyesight cannot reach beyond 500 paces. Shooting further would be futile. Zhang Xiaochuan smiled mysteriously and said, not at all, not at all. Li Longji was surprised. How? Do you have a way to enhance vision? Zhang Xiaochuan remained silent and pointed to the telescope in Li Longji's hand, and Li Longji suddenly understood. With a gesture from Zhang Xiaochuan, the demonstrator immediately took out a scope and skillfully attached it to the rifle. Then it easily hit the target at 500 paces, and continued to hit targets at 600, 700, and 800 paces with ease. After the shooting, Zhang Xiaochuan reported back to Li Longji, and the ministers, witnessing such a marvel, cheered loudly and showered praises. Li Longji was very pleased and wanted to try it himself, so Zhang Xiaochuan patiently explained how to operate it. This was a manual rifle, and after each shot, one had to manually eject the spent cartridge and chamber a new round. Zhang Xiaochuan emphasized repeatedly, Your Majesty, this is the buttstock. It must be pressed against your shoulder in this position, or the recoil will be significant and could injure your shoulder. Li Longji, eager to learn like a schoolboy, after listening to Zhang Xiaochuan's explanation, positioned the buttstock against his shoulder. To avoid any accidents, he pressed it firmly. As Li Longji pulled the trigger, a loud bang echoed, and the bullet hit the bullseye at 300 paces precisely. A group of sycophants nearby cheered loudly. Your Majesty is mighty. Your marksmanship is truly comparable to that of the legendary archers. Zhang Xiaochuan looked at these people and thought to himself, it seems that when the higher-ups are pleased, the lower ones must follow suit, and he quickly kept in line with the enthusiasm. However, there was a strange expression on Li Longji's face amid his happiness. Xiaochuan, your physique seems too weak. What you said about recoil sounded so dreadful that I was genuinely worried. But after shooting, I found there was no recoil at all. It was clearly you who are weak, exaggerating the danger. Huh? Zhang Xiaochuan silently complained in his heart. This emperor is quite something. Who knew that the people of ancient times had such good physical fitness? Perhaps it has something to do with the reduced amount of gunpowder I used. Yet he flatteringly replied, I am indeed weak. Your Majesty is mighty. I was overly cautious. After saying that, Zhang Xiaochuan silently wiped away a tear, thinking, I've stooped so low that flattery has become so smooth. Li Longji laughed heartily indeed. Let me show you how it's done, haha. The ministers also joined in the laughter at Zhang Xiaochuan's expense, with Li Linfu laughing the loudest, and Zhang Xiaochuan secretly cursed this group of old men. Li Longji held the rifle, not resting it against his shoulder, but shooting it as if it were a crossbow. The rifle remained steady, and the bullet hit the bullseye again, followed by another round of cheers. Li Longji turned to Zhang Xiaochuan and asked, what do you think? The question was directed at Zhang Xiaochuan, but Li Linfu, that old fellow, jumped in and said, Your Majesty is mighty. Holding the gun in midair and still hitting the target accurately. Unlike our director Zhang, whose health is frail and can't even withstand a little recoil. Zhang Xiaochuan cursed inwardly, Li Linfu, you old dog, keep flattering the emperor while stepping on me. I'm not someone who can be easily pushed around, Your Majesty. I believe what the Chancellor said is quite right. My frail body is indeed of no use. I can only create a car or a rifle for Your Majesty. Unlike Chancellor Li, who can recite Your Majesty's achievements from memory and speak at will, I am lacking in this regard. This remark was extremely biting, and it made Li Linfu's beard bristle with anger, but Emperor Li Longji still defended him, scolding Zhang Xiaochuan. You speak without restraint. How can you question the words of a high-ranking minister? I consider your youth and past contributions, but if you continue to be so aggressive, I will surely punish you. In Chapter 207, Thoughts of Li Longji. Although the emperor had spoken for Li Linfu felt uneasy. This kid, who was once like an ant, had now become a sixth-rank official. On the surface, it seemed the emperor was supporting him, but in reality, if another sixth-rank official had dared to challenge the chancellor in front of the emperor, they would have been dealt with swiftly. It appeared that Zhang Xiaochuan could not be allowed to grow any further. Li Linfu had already silently begun to add him to his list of targets. Emperor Li Longji then asked the ministers to try out the rifle. One must say, the Tang dynasty was indeed not comparable to the Song dynasty, where martial prowess was neglected. This group of civil officials handled the guns steadily, and after shooting, they were all extremely excited, behaving like military generals. Li Shiji exclaimed, Your Majesty, with this divine object, our Tang army will be invincible. I believe we should hold a grand banquet to celebrate. Li Longji chuckled. You want to drink my new wine, don't you? Good. Someone, go to Huaiwei Xianghui Tower and prepare for the banquet. Li Longji continued, It's getting late. And regarding the previous discussion about the military operations in Shanzhou, I order Huangfu Weiming to lead the troops there. Also, today's matters are classified. You must not disclose them. Now, you may all withdraw, and we shall gather at Huaiwei Xianghui Tower in the evening. The ministers bowed and left. But Zhang Xiaochuan was stopped by Gao Lishur and taken to the emperor's study. Li Longji, examining the Mauser manual rifle in his hands, asked, Can this be produced in large quantities? Zhang Xiaochuan replied, The guns can be manufactured on a large scale, but the bullets. What's wrong with the bullets? The emperor inquired. Your Majesty, the production of these bullets requires cotton, which is currently very scarce. It will take time to cultivate. At least 1 to 2 years for mass production. Otherwise, the guns produced now would be no different from firewood. Li Longji asked, What is cotton? Zhang Xiaochuan realized that at this time, it was not called cotton, and he racked his brain trying to remember what it was called. But he couldn't think of it for a moment. He could only explain, This thing has red petals when it blooms, with light green petals. After the flowers fall, there will be green fruit resembling peaches, and when they mature, the peach-like fruit will burst open into segments, with fibrous material inside and black seeds resembling sheep dung. Zhang Xiaochuan described it in great detail, but the emperor had never seen it. However, the eunuch Gao Lishur beside him said, Your Majesty, what Master Zhang mentioned reminds me of something called the white folded flower. Gao Lishur's words triggered Zhang Xiaochuan's memory. Yes, it's the white folded flower. Li Longji asked Gao Lishur, Isn't this something not produced in our realm? Is it rare? Gao Lishur replied, This white folded flower is a tribute from the western regions, used as an ornamental flower. The southern garden has planted a few acres, and over the years, quite a bit has accumulated in the storehouse. I need to check the specifics. Li Longji said, In that case, you should take Master Zhang to have a look later. He then turned to Zhang Xiaochuan. I am very satisfied with what you presented today. What reward do you wish for? Zhang Xiaochuan replied, Your Majesty, I do not seek a reward. I only wish to offer some advice, and I hope you will consider it. In fact, Li Longji had already guessed what Zhang Xiaochuan wanted to say, but still said, Just speak your mind. Zhang Xiaochuan continued, I believe the matter of the Yang family's daughter is quite suspicious, and it may be difficult to retrieve her. The wedding of Prince Shou should be planned for early. Li Longji's expression darkened. At that moment, he was torn inside. As an emperor, should he allow his ministers to manipulate him? Although this exchange was beneficial to him, he felt unsettled. After much contemplation, Li Longji ultimately chose to compromise. Although he was the supreme ruler, he had often made compromises. This matter was not worth holding out against. He waved his hand and said, What you said. I will decide. You may leave. Zhang Xiaochuan bowed and exited. Li Longji watched Zhang Xiaochuan's retreating figure. This person possesses extraordinary abilities, yet he lacks respect for imperial authority. How can I trust such a person? The old servant then spoke. I have some words, but I wonder, General Gao, do you really need to conceal anything when speaking to me? The old servant continued, I overstepped. Those with outstanding abilities often consider themselves extraordinary, and inherently, they tend to be unruly. This is not a major issue. Otherwise, how could your Majesty showcase your respect for talent? There are many servants at your disposal. One more or less does not matter. Haha, you old thing have indeed taught me a lesson. I have been too rigid. Perhaps because my power has grown over the years, no one dares to speak frankly to me anymore. Although our realm is flourishing now, I still feel we have not reached the pinnacle. I am willing but powerless, lacking a great talent like Shang Jun to assist in overturning the world. What I have done is merely to restore order and return to the prosperity of the Jingguan era. As Li Longji spoke, he began to feel a tinge of sadness. Gao Lishur hurriedly bowed. Your Majesty, there is no need for self-deprecation. Being able to restore the Tang dynasty and revive the Jingguan governance is a tremendous achievement. Moreover, your Majesty is currently in the prime of your reign. What is there to worry about in taking another step forward? Li Longji waved his hand. I know in my heart. When I first ascended the throne, I was full of ambition, and my policies had significant effects. But now I have entered a quagmire, facing external nomadic tribes, highland barbarians, and southern alien races, while internally there are issues of worthless currency, land consolidation, and clans controlling public opinion. Each of these problems is not due to my lack of effort, but it is truly difficult. The world believes that the emperor is supreme, but little do they know the struggles in my heart. My indulgence in pleasure is also a helpless choice. Your Majesty, you must not blame yourself. I have something quite disrespectful to say. Your Majesty's concerns have existed throughout history. Even wise rulers like the Taizong and Gaozong could not eradicate such issues, let alone you. Li Longji had expressed most of his pent-up frustrations, and with Gao Lisher's flattery to guide him. He said, "It is rare to have a general like Gao who understands my difficulties. It brings me great comfort. Now that we have this rifle, we can rest easy regarding external matters, but I wonder if this young man has the ability to govern." Gao Lisher interjected. "Once your Majesty has given instructions for the construction of the electric lights, it will become clear." That makes sense. Please summon Yang Hui and Qin Xuanli back. There's no need to search for the daughter of the Yang family anymore. We will state that she died suddenly from a strange illness. Provide some compensation to the Yang family, and transfer Yang Xuanli to a position in Zhongzhou. Also, invite Consort Wu back to accompany me for a banquet at the Huai West Xianghui Pavilion. Understood. The recent chaotic searches in Chang'an came to an abrupt end. News spread through the palace that Yang Yuhuan of the Yang family had died from an illness, which was indeed a regrettable event. Yang Xuanli was promoted to the position of deputy in Ruzhou, receiving a direct elevation of 6 ranks. Wei Zhaoxuan, the general of the left guard, had his third daughter conferred as the princess of Shou, with urgent matters prioritized, marrying on the originally scheduled date alongside Yang Yuhuan. Zhang Xiaochuan, on the basis of constructing a power plant and laying an electric grid, was also tasked with establishing a rifle production line. As for Yang Yuhuan, she was currently in the office of the factory manager at a milk powder factory, dressed in a gray suit paired with a white shirt, exuding the aura of a domineering executive. She reclined comfortably in the boss's chair, savoring the latest milk product. Chapter 208. The direction of Tongyi. The West Air River, now known as Arai Lake, features a very unique terrain. Although called a river, it is actually a lake, elongated like an ear, which may be the origin of its name. 6 nations, or tribes, known as the 6 Zhao, were born around the West Air River. The river generally runs north-south. The eastern bank is mountainous, while the western bank consists of flat, fertile riverbanks, the widest being 10 kilometers and the narrowest 3 kilometers. Further west are continuous mountain ranges, which protect the land along the West Air River and its western bank. At the narrowest point upstream, a fortress called Longzhou City, or Dragon's Head, was established. And downstream at the narrowest point is Longwei City, or Dragon's Tail. Whoever controls these 2 locations essentially possesses this uniquely fertile land. Both locations are natural fortresses, making them nearly impregnable. Years later, the Tang dynasty's campaign against the Nanzhao was severely hampered by this natural barrier, leading to significant losses. Although the failure to conquer Nanzhao was partly due to incompetent military leaders and support from neighboring forces, the unique terrain of the West Air River was also a key factor in the Tang's defeat. Between Longzhou and Longwei City are 2 major cities. Dali City, near Longzhou, currently controlled by a coalition of the 4 Zhao, Yueshi Zhao, Longxiong Zhao, Tangdan Zhao, and Shilang Zhao, and the Tubo and Yangzhoumiai City, near Longwei, currently controlled by the Mengxi Zhao and the Tang coalition, making it the 5th Zhao. The 6th Zhao, Mengxi Zhao, has now completely submitted to Mengxi Zhao, effectively ceasing to exist. Outside Yangzhoumiai City, a large camp of the Tang army is set up. Big brother, how about we convene in the command tent? When are we going to strike? It has been 2 days since we arrived. Zhang Jingren shot a glare. In the military camp, call me Lieutenant Zhang or General Zhang. What are you in such a hurry for? Just stay on standby. The one speaking was Teng Yi, who had disappeared for a long time. Teng Yi chuckled and said, General Zhang, I've heard that the enemy army has only about 100,000 troops. Just give the word, and I'll lead my brothers here to break through their camp tonight and bring back the enemy leader's head to you. Shut up. If you have nothing to do, go run a few laps around the training grounds instead of bragging here. Also, I've been meaning to ask, why are you so stubbornly following me here? Aren't you supposed to be protecting Xiao Chuan? Teng Yi scratched his head. Well, Xiao Chuan said that going to war is too dangerous and asked me to bring a team to protect you. Zhang Jingren looked at Teng Yi in confusion. Is that all? That is all. Do you think I'm lying? Honestly, otherwise I could send you back right now. Teng Yi had no choice but to back down. All right, I'll tell you. Xiao Chuan said that cold weapon warfare is just kids playing house, and I should come to end the battle quickly. And then what? Keep talking. Zhang Jingren was quite annoyed. He was risking his life here while his brother thought it was just child's play. This kid would definitely get it when he returned. Seeing Zhang Jingren getting angry, Teng Yi continued. Then I should do business with that Luo from Mengxi Zhao and borrow a path south to find those Indian banyans. It's Pilogu. And you should call him King of Yunnan, and no swearing. Teng Yi mumbled. That is what Xiao Chuan said. Zhang Jingren felt a bit of a headache. Forget it. Just stay honest in the military camp and don't cause trouble. Go on. Just as Teng Yi was about to turn and leave, Zhang Jingren called out. Wait a minute. Teng Yi turned back to look at Zhang Jingren, who asked with an unfriendly expression, why are 4 of your men missing? Damn Balboa. What? Teng Yi grinned. I sent them to scout the terrain to facilitate future battles. There are scouts around, and you need to call them back now. All right. Tung Yi said and immediately ran off. But instead of going to his own tent, he headed straight for Baobuai's tent. That's why it takes a year and a half to wage war in ancient times. Marching from Jiannan to Shi-Er River, a distance of 1,000 kilometers, took a full month. They had been at the location for 2 days, and the camp had just finished settling in. Baobua, Zhang Jingren's deputy, was organizing the supplies in his tent when he suddenly felt something approaching quickly. Before Baobua could react, he was kicked to the ground by a big foot. And then he heard Tung Yi's voice. Damn, your mouth is really fast. Didn't you just go to sign a couple of exit documents? In less than half a day, you've already reported to Delang. Baobua, clutching his sore bottom, got up from the ground. He wanted to get angry but didn't he dare to. He was well aware of Tung Yi's strength, so he could only explain.